Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Loreweek. I'm your host, Voot. Oh man, it has been an interesting week, let me tell you. My brain is kind of gone. I've been through so many games this last week, pushing for, getting YouTube stuff done. So I'm just sitting here kind of like, ugh. It's all blurring. It's all the same game, really. Like Jade Empire, God, I don't remember what have I covered this week. Jade Empire, Sleeping Dogs, System Shock 2, Legacy of Kain, Soul Reaver, Max Payne, the original. Yeah, it's all just a blur. Oh my goodness, how are you guys doing today? Ah. A little bit of an announcement for those of you not aware. First of all, we do have a Voot going on right now. It looks a little one-sided right now, but there's something else that can make a comeback. I also want to plug the Cold One with the Boys. For those of you who've never heard of these guys, they're a podcast. I've actually heard of them and seen them before. I suppose "seen" is the wrong terminology. You know, they were trying to get me as a guest for their own podcast, and my schedule was not being compliant. Oh my god. Like, they happened to ask right about when E3 and SGDQ and the last lore run, whatever that was, where it's all happening. I'm like, give me a minute. Guys, give me a minute. And so I finally, here's a link to the Voot. So I finally was able to get together with him for basically the one window in my time, because I wouldn't be available for like another 3 weeks at this point. And so I'm a guest star, and one of the things, I've actually posted it on my Twitter, but I'm going to go ahead and give a quick post here in chat for anybody who missed that. I also posted it on my Discord. So that's the guest episode featuring the idiot. That's me. It was a good podcast, though. It was good chatting with them, and I will probably be back on their show sometime in the future. What else happened? Oh yeah, so anybody who cares about Enter the Gungeon, that's getting an expansion which is coming out soon. And Endless Legend is getting an expansion too. Probably. We're not actually sure about that. There's also a game called The Chasm, which I have legitimate interest in, despite the obvious meme potential. And I'm kind of curious what it is. It's a pseudo... It's not actually a procedurally generated Metroidvania, because all the levels are manually crafted, but the way those levels are linked together is procedurally generated, so that should be interesting. By the way, hi, let's see, who's here today? Sonic Doctor, Tech, Valerian, If and But, Mike Romanu, Raximus. I'm seeing less and less of, man, you have way too busy of a life. We need to talk about that. Oh, speaking of which, don't let me forget to tell you about the blanket method. Little Billy, Wraith, Ciela, don't recognize you. Cashel, Griffin Knight, Zed Slayer, Codex, Black Vial, Anthony, MS Cardo, Crit Source, Cyber Sage, Huthor, Blue Elf Alex, Cordoon. What's up, guys? I am a little tired, please forgive me. I have been absolutely cramming this last week, because this is my last week to get... Sacred King, good morning. This is my last week to get YouTube work done. Starting literally tomorrow, I'll be watching my niece for the next, like, 2.5 weeks. So there won't be a lot of streaming, and there won't be a lot of recording. I will, of course, be doing Loreweek as usual, but I will probably not be doing the Lorewalker Theater stuff, because I'll be watching my niece. So, yay. Will I try to stream if she's asleep? No. If she's asleep, I will be probably asleep as well. I know that some of you don't quite understand this, but a young person that you have to take care of is incredibly draining. Like, I do not have the energy of a 5-year-old, so anytime she's laying down, I'm just like, oh. You get used to getting micro naps. Also, yes, I do love Mega Man, although I haven't played 20XX yet. It's actually on the list for Premiere Run, so... what else is going on? Yeah, sometimes I wish that I was younger. Yeah, that my niece was born younger in my life, so I could have, you know, I would have more energy. Then again, I don't know how much more energy I would have. I don't know. Loreweek Theater's going great, by the way. I want to plug that. We have been having an excellent series of progress. Chapter 6 and 7 have the raw footage recorded. I still need to edit those together for timing videos. And we've got a whole bunch of new people. Steiner's lines are all done for Chapter 2. And Valvedrix has joined the Baker's Dozen, filling us with tremendous fear for the moment. Thank you, Valvedrix. Despite your unique situation, I do still appreciate your support. Thank you. Oh, hey, Catabo. Yeah, exactly, Black Val. She's basically a roaming nuclear power thing. Christ. Like, if I ever wanted to just destroy the world, I'd just hook up a bomb to her and be like, alright, kiddo. Let's go to Six Flags. Hey, Spirit of Memory. And then by the time we're done at Six Flags, there goes the world. Okay. So, we only have one... Oh, I just realized I don't have the text up. God dang. I'm really out of... There's only one news bit I want to talk about today, but I've got two talk about bits today. Oh, actually, that reminds me. I want to do that, too. So let's talk about Comcast, because everyone loves Comcast. Right? You'll love Comcast, right? Exactly, Zed Slayer. I understand. Oh, did I already link the vote in chat? I don't remember if I did, but just in case I didn't, here's the vote. There's the link. Couldn't remember if I linked it. Before I do that, I actually want to change something, because I want to test something while I'm streaming here. So please forgive me. Comcast. So let me get a timestamp here. Well, Comcast definitely fills me with fear. Thank you very, very much, Slime Time. Though I never quite asked for those Tier 1 subs, I do still very much appreciate them. Thank you. Oh yeah, that was the other thing I was going to talk about before we talk about Comcast. For those of you not aware... Oh, okay, so yeah, I want to talk about this. Hang on. Let's do a new timestamp here. So I did a little bit of an experimental rumination last week. In the middle of the other ruminations I was working on, I played my way through Journey. For the first time, actually. Never actually had time for it. Journey was picked very specifically. I needed a game that I have never played before, and that was very short, so I could squeeze it into my time. And I wanted to sit down and see what I could do with scripting it. And so, you know, I did my usual method of taking notes, and then I fleshed those notes out into thoughts, and then I read the script. Most of you have probably already seen that. I've gotten tons and tons and tons of feedback on those videos. So I wanted to address a couple things that are live, since most of you are probably going to hear this, rather than responding to every individual comment. Hi, Mugen. Yes, I journeyed my way through. Totally solo, of course. Who needs other players, am I right? The first thing I want to mention is one of the big things people kept saying is, why don't you have footage of the game? Why don't you have footage of the game? Put footage of the game backwards, put more editing to put footage of the game and the footage of the game and the footage of the game. Now, I've actually already answered why I don't do footage of the game in my FAQ on my website. But of course, not everyone has read the FAQ, so I just wanted to address this very quickly. Footage of the game is not happening. The only way, and I want to stress this, the only way that footage of the game could ever show up in my show is if two things are met. One, if I had the money to host my videos on my own server. So in other words, I wasn't on YouTube. I just had a video file on my own server farm, which you're watching there. Hello, Solaris. And I also had enough money to hire someone else to edit. These are the only two ways that I could ever do gameplay footage. There are simply too many obstacles and problems with doing gameplay footage as of right now. The most obvious problem is that certain games... Well, certain games are totally fine to do video footage of. I could probably have done video footage with Journey, for example, but there are simply too many other games that I can't, either because of copywrong, or because of bullcrap on YouTube, or because it's too difficult to grab footage of the game, or because it's literally impossible to grab footage of the game, or whatever. So, because of... Yeah, exactly, there's so many different problems with doing gameplay footage, just in the sense of doing it at all. For example, if I did a movie rumination, I can't really do gameplay footage at all, can I? And if I did a video rumination on something like, say, Persona 5 or a Nintendo game, there would be issues with that. On the other side of things is obviously time. So the only way putting footage in the background would ever be feasible is if I recorded my entire playthrough, which this is what people who actually do this do, by the way. Record the entire playthrough and just have tons and tons of footage for the entire playthrough. And then when you're sitting down and thinking of all of the different little things that you want to put up there, you have to go searching through all this footage and find this, and find this, and find this, and then splice those together, and then, you know, splice them together for the right amount of time, and so forth and so on. It would be an enormous amount of time investure. That would be one of those, like, one video a month kind of things. Maybe one video a week, unless I had someone else to do that entirely, in which case, you see the problem. So between feasibility and between the fact that it would take an inordinate amount of time, gameplay footage isn't happening. It's just not happening. It's okay, Spirit of Memory. Go watch football. I understand. Now... the other thing I wanted to address is several people said, I could tell you when you went off script. I never actually went off script. That was 100% scripted. Every word I said, with the exception of like an here or there, was fully scripted. That's just me writing it down. I found that amusing. I have to admit, one of the things, nobody actually mentioned this, but I wanted to address this. Some people might be wondering why I didn't just memorize the script. I can't really do that. Like, I can memorize. It's something that I'm capable of doing, but it's something that has always been exceptionally difficult for me to do. I can't just do memorization in the strictest sense of the word, unless I devote a huge amount of time to do it. My usual method of memorization is to memorize tone or intent, and then say something to that intent. There's a term for this, and I can't actually think of it. It's my own particular acting style. Back when I did acting, I used to ad-lib several lines, not completely from nothing, but from the intent of what the line originally was, if that makes any sense. Because there's total improv, there's total memorization. What I do is actually pretty much right in the middle. I can't... It's very, very difficult for me to do total memorization, and it takes a lot more time, because you're just sitting here reading the script like, okay. The way most people get away with memorizing is they memorize like one sentence or one paragraph, and then they edit it. I'm sure you've seen this on YouTube. You know, they're like, blah, 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 blah. Cut. Blah, 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 blah. Cut. Blah, 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 blah. Cut. Right, like, you've seen that happen. That's how most people do that. They don't actually memorize it at all. They just, they read one sentence and then do an edit. And that is a very unusual format, which I'm not even sure if I would be fully capable of doing that on my show. So that's what's going on with the scripting. That's going on with the memorization. I actually have looked into float plane, although I might look into it again in the future, so we'll see. Oh yes, and I have looked into Pornhub. Let's just get that joke out of the way. This is not a joke. I actually know a friend who is currently hosting their show on Pornhub. There's nothing pornographic about the show, by the way. Without joking or exaggeration, it's getting kind of sad how much better Pornhub is getting than YouTube for certain things. It's ridiculous. I stopped finding it funny a bit ago. I gotta be honest. It's just really... Really? Okay. Whatever. Anyways. That is... Now, this is without joking. That is my fallback. If something really, really happens badly on YouTube, that's my option. My only option. My only other option to do anything at all would be to remove video format entirely, to go purely to audio, which I could do. Although I have heard many people say that. Speaking of which, that's the other thing I wanted to mention. Well, there are plenty of things. It's actually a lot easier to do scripted works or edited works with audio, because I could just record the audio completely separate of everything and then toss the audio on a video and then done. But I have heard from many different people that not having me here doesn't work. I'm not even going to ask you that question, because so many people have already told me, so much feedback has already been given, that if I am not here, you know, expressing or demonstrating or whatever, it just doesn't have the same impact. And I can understand that. I'm a very visual talker. In real life, too. I tend to talk with my hands and my stance a whole lot in real life as well. So I can kind of understand that. But that is the harsh reality. My options as of right now are YouTube, Pornhub, or pure audio. I'll keep looking into it. I look into it every now and again. Every few months I do another take of trying to figure out what's going on and hopefully find another option. So. Of course, I also know plenty of people who only listen to my stuff. That's why we do the MP3 stuff now. For people who just want the audio version. Yes, I will stream shirtless. No, no. I'm too pale. It wouldn't work. I have, like, no... Like, I'm reasonable... Well, I used to be reasonably tan. I've kind of lost my tan bit by bit. I bet you I will be more tan in 3 weeks, because, you know, she likes to go to the park, so... Yeah, exactly, Rax. Right now, my options are none. Which, this song, or the song right before this one? Cyber Sage. Unfortunately, the plugin I had that showed the music is just not working with iTunes, so I can't actually show you that. Well, thank you, Slime Time. I've been playing WoW for a long time, too, and I hope you've enjoyed. Speaking of which, this Tuesday, it's going to be interesting to see how different things are. I wonder if Rogues will actually be fun to play now. Okay. Oh, that's it. No, that's a good idea. I'll just get, like a Kleenex box and just put it here, right? Or maybe, like, put 2 of them, like this. No, BFA doesn't come out this Tuesday, but Acclimation does. I suppose I should explain that for those who don't actually know what Acclimation is. In any given expansion, they do a lot of updates to game systems, concepts, professions, classes, mechanics, animations, all sorts of stuff. And this update is what I call the Acclimation patch. It's acclimating World of Warcraft to where it will be for the expansion. Technically, BFA is actually coming out in Tuesday, but none of the new content will be unlocked yet. That's how WoW does their expansions. I don't know how other MMOs do their expansions. I know you get it, Rax. I'm explaining for other people. So I don't know how other MMOs do their expansions, but WoW does it basically. They release the expansion early, and that allows them to iron out any problems. People get used to the new mechanics. People get used to the new playstyles, etc., etc. And then 3 weeks later, in this case, they flip the switch and the new content goes live, and then they could go and actually play the new expansion stuff. Acclimation Patch Day has always been a big deal for WoW, because we've only had a few of them, if you think about it. There's the one for BC, Wrath, Kata, Pandaria, Warlords, Legion, and now this is the 7th Acclimation ever. And Acclimation is awesome. There's a lot of cool things, and it's always fun to go around and just see how things have changed. Because there's never been a small Acclimation patch. There's always been, massive changes, right? I mean, we're basically losing artifact weapons, this one. That is if you haven't played WoW right now, that is a gargantuan change. A huge change. Because artifact weapons don't just give you stats, they give you new abilities or new reactions or new procs. They completely change your playstyle. So, if for that alone, this Acclimation patch is going to be great. Oh yeah, by the way, for those of you who are not aware, we are functionally losing our artifact weapons come Acclimation patch, and that is this coming Tuesday. Yeah. Yes, everyone gets Acclimation, because, remember, the game is being pushed forward to this state. Even if you never buy BFA, Acclimation is still happening regardless, because the game is changing forward regardless. That's true. So there's always been... I might as well just make this the topic. I'm going to have to go back and edit the topic here, so we'll talk about, you know, wow, Acclimation. I'll figure out the timestamp in a minute. The way all acclamations, thank you, Max Time. I wasn't ignoring you. Acclamations tend to have a thing where Palayan shows up and says, "Howdy, hi Palayan," where there was what they usually refer to as a pre-launch event. Now, the quality of those pre-launch events has varied wildly over the years. Back in BC, there wasn't really any new quest chains other than a couple of quests in the Blasted Lands, but they did have High Lord Cruel and High Lord, what's his face? I can't even think of his name right now, stomping around and randomly attacking cities, and it was like, it was okay. Kazakh, thank you. I couldn't think of his damn name, Kazakh. And that was kind of it. Wrath had an awesome pre-launch. It is actually still probably my favorite pre-launch event to date, because in addition to, so it was like 3 separate tiers of, or types of stuff. First of all, there was a new quest chain dealing with the Scourge invasion. Second of all, there were these random Scourge invasions that would happen in a zone where little necropoli would show up over Tanarus or Eastern Plaguelands or whatever, and you would run around fighting these off, getting these tokens. You could get unique gear, which you can't get anymore. It looked very cool. I wish I had it. I'm actually upset that I never got that gear unlock. You get all there's all sorts of stuff you could get from that too, little cosmetic stuff, including the toy, which I still have. And the most important thing, you could basically join the Scourge. You could literally, the way it worked is any of the random attacking things or any of the plague barrels or whatever. What the hell are you doing, Valerian? What the hell? Why? Why would you do this? Thank you, Valerian. Thank you very, very much. I will put that towards whatever I want to put it towards. Probably something nice for my niece, if I'm just being 100% honest. Because I like getting her treats, because I like spoiling her rotten. What do you want from me? That's not true. I don't like spoiling rotten. I believe in moderation, and I believe in, you know, acceptability. But I also like getting her treats. So that's probably what that's going to go to. Thank you. No, Gallade, I haven't even touched it yet. We're going to do a premiere run on it, so I can't touch it until I get there. No, Psychotic, or if I did, I don't remember it. What happened was you could get infected with the undead plague. And the way this worked is you would rot, and then you would turn into a zombie, but you were this super weak zombie, like you could only shuffle along, just like, come on, let's go. Ugh. And then you would rot out and die. And it was just kind of like, okay, that's neat, whatever. It was just kind of a cool little thing. But as the invasion progressed... Oh, that's very cute. That's Psychotic. As the invasion progressed, the duration that you stayed rotten, the duration that you could stay undead, and the potency of you spreading the undead plague increased. And so over time, like initially it was just like, okay, whatever, like it wasn't even that fun. By about like the 3rd increase in severity, there were entire towns which were basically wiped out because people were just running around spreading the plague. By the 5th time, which I believe was the final one, but please forgive me if I'm wrong in my timing there. By the final increase in severity, the entire server was basically a ghost town when it came to NPCs. I remember distinctly being in Shatrith, and there was not a single living NPC in Shatrith. A whole lot of Scourge, no living NPCs. And as Valerian points out, you could actually talk to and trade with them as zombies, because zombies were their own faction. In fact, some of you may or may not be aware, during the end of BC, me and my friends made a shift. I've told this story before, I'm not going to bore you with it. Made the shift from Alliance to Horde as our primary area. And when the Scourge invasion happened, we got all of our stuff onto one character on the Alliance, all the stuff we had there, and then got him undeaded, and then gave it all to our Horde character. So we transferred the entire guild bank and all the money and everything over to the Horde, because we could do that through the equality that the Scourge gave us. Then, of course, Cataclysm's pre-launch event was a little more structured. Still good. There were a lot of individual little quests you could do. All of it was basically story. There were perfectly balanced, as all things should be. There was the, you got this whole thing where it's like there's these cultists that are just showing up out of nowhere, and you had to help defend this one area against the elementals. You had to make sure that this Titan artifact got into Ironforge. That's the one that ended up changing Magni into Diamond. There was some pre-quests involving Thrall and his change into being a terrible character for a bit. What? I don't like the aggro thing. I never have. And, that was kind of a separate thing, Venters. However, taking back... Oh, yes, the tremors were happening, of course, before the actual Cataclysm hit. We had instance stuff, as is being pointed out. We went and fought the elemental invasions, both in the zones and actually going and fighting elemental bosses who dropped 251 gear, which was 10-man Citadel-level gear. So it was not the best gear in the game, but it was really good for people who needed the catch-up. And by God, people needed the catch-up, because Cataclysm was a lot rougher than Wrath was as far as overworld questing. And, of course, we had to take back Gnomragon, which they failed at. That always pissed me off a little bit. Like, I know people think I'm Horde-centric, but I just gotta say, it pissed me off that we went to retake Gnomragon and we failed. It was an awesome quest. It was an awesome event. But we failed. But when we went to retake the Echo Islands, we succeeded. What? Ugh. Anyways. So that was Kata. Great launch event. And then the worst launch event we've ever had was Pandaria. Because there basically wasn't a launch event. And I'm still pissed about this, especially considering... So, some of you know that Pandaria is my favorite expansion, or at least in the running for my favorite expansion. One of the reasons I was so negatively inclined towards Pandaria originally is because their pre-launch event was crap. It was just the scenario. It was just the scenario. The bombing of Theramore. That's it. Now, there were technically two scenarios. One is Horde, and one is Alliance. I forget which one happened first. In one of them, it's bombed, and then one of them, I think it's the Horde first to bomb it, and then it's the Alliance to recover from it. And I'm just like, that's it? This is a Pokemon song, yes. Laboratory from the GBA versions, I think. I hated that. Warlords at least had a far more substantial pre-launch event where they were actually invading, and we had a whole series of quests in the Blasted Lands, and we actually opened up Ubris, the new Ubris dungeon. A lot of cool stuff. Not nearly as cool as the other stuff. Legion was finally getting back to having an awesome pre-launch event, because there was some really cool stuff in the Legion pre-launch event, including, most obviously, the Legion invasions, where the Legion would just start invading across the world. and tons and tons of players would go there. Alliance and Horde working together, as it should be. And, oh god, okay, go fight this guy and kill these guys over here. Now we gotta kill this boss, and now he's over here attacking this place. Oh god, the ship's attacking. It was some really, really, really awesome stuff. In addition to quests and the whole lead up to Dalaran teleporting there and figuring out what's going to happen and blah, blah, blah. There was a little quest chain there too. But the Legion invasion stuff was fantastic. And yeah, you could level like crazy. PAX actually leveled like 4 characters to 100 just on Legion invasions. I thought War Mode was going in the pre-patch. Which brings us to BFA. Yeah, I'm 90% certain it is. I'm actually pulling it up. Give me a second here. Here we go. I mean, it's an acclimation. It should be in. There's no reason it wouldn't be. This should be also when the new loot mode goes in, although I haven't seen specific word about that. The transmog loot mode. Yeah, it's right here. War mode. War mode's going in. Boop. It's on the notes. Anyways, hopefully BFA will also have an awesome pre-launch. Fingers crossed. We know there's probably going to be some questing. There's very likely going to be a scenario. But they've been actually weirdly tight-lipped about some of the specifics. And funnily enough, and I just keep saying this, we still don't know what causes the burning of Teldrassil. To this day, we do not know what causes the burning of Teldrassil. We are basically 3.5 weeks from the launch of the game. They have been very tight-lipped about that. This better be an actual reveal. I'm just saying, Blizzard has a bad habit of keeping really quiet about something for a long time, and then it's just the expected thing, right? Like, they've done this before. You remember Vol'jin? For those of you who don't remember, they had this big thing. Oh my gosh, there's this super secret thing. You're never going to find out who the new war chief is. It's super secret who the new war chief is. And they left the cinematic out of it, and they were very quiet, and they didn't have any of the text on, and then it was Vol'jin. It's like, we all knew it was going to be Vol'jin. That's not even... What the hell? That's not a thing. Anyways. So yeah, what I'm expecting is super secret. Oh, we'll never learn who the burning is. It was Sylvanas. Why keep it a secret at that point? Do not take notes from J.J. Abrams, okay? Because he does that crap. I hate it when he does that crap. Anyways, in answer to question, I do plan to do a sort of premiere run of BFA. I'm not sure how. I'm not even caught up in my YouTube stuff yet. I still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Friday ruminations to do, and I have to finish all of the DS9 stuff. That is an inordinate amount of work, and like I mentioned, I can't work on that for the next several weeks. So I don't know. I mean, there's like a billion streams I need to do, and I've been trying to get caught up on YouTube stuff, and I'm doing the best I can, guys. I'm sorry. I'm a worthless failure. Let's talk about Comcast. Speaking of worthless failures. What's the timestamp? How long have I been talking about WoW? God, I've been talking about WoW for like 20 minutes. Let's talk about WoW. And by WoW, I mean, let's talk about Comcast! Okay, so for those of you not aware, at least talking about WoW woke me up a bit, because it's talking about something I actually cared about. Comcast, so for those of you not aware, Comcast has probably failed, this is still not 100% confirmed, but has probably failed at ensuring that they take the Fox bid from Disney. That bid has still not 100% gone through, because that's not how bids work. It's not like, I will offer you this much, sold! No, there's a lot of rigmarole you have to go through before that's actually fulfilled, before that actually happens. But I would say, based on evidence, this is speculation, but I would say based on evidence that Comcast has basically pulled out of the Fox bid and is now going for Sky. Specifically Sky. Now, I imagine several of you know what Sky is, but on the off chance you don't, Sky is basically I think? Like, I'm pretty sure they're the dominant shareholder, or excuse me, not shareholder, market holder right now in Europe as far as cable television. No, just Sky. So yeah, Comcast is trying to purchase Sky out from under Fox. Now, Fox is still kind of... There's a whole bidding war thing going on. I don't actually want to go into that, to be completely honest with you. What's relevant is that Comcast is basically saying, okay, we can't have all of Fox's holdings. Let's just specifically go after Sky. Now, I actually use Sky, by the way. That's how I'm aware of Sky. It's how I first became aware of Sky back in like 2013, I want to say. Something like that. Because it was how I was watching Formula 1. So yeah, let's explain Comcast, for those of you who don't know what Comcast is. Comcast is one of the... I know that, Blackfell, but I don't want to report on it until we have some answers on that. Comcast is one of the most terrible corporations here in the United States. Now, they're not like super mega bad. There's tiers of bad when it comes to corporations. And that fills you with tremendous fear. Thank you very, very much. You're actually one of my only tier 3 subs, which is weird to me, but thank you. Did you guys know, I'm sorry, weird thing, I just found this out recently. Did you know that Twitch takes less from higher tier subs, percentage-wise, than they do lower tier subs? Like, it's 50-50, but then it's like 70-20 or 70-30 or 80-20 or something. That's weird. I just found that out last week. Anyways. Tiers of bad, right? Actually, okay, I'm going to disagree with Black Val in there. Comcast is actually worse than EA. But Comcast is not as bad as the really bad companies. EA, I know this is going to sound weird, EA is not actually even on the chart that I'm talking about. EA is merely a bad corporation. There are banks here in the States that are basically pure evil. There are holding companies, and I was referencing one the other day. There are companies that are basically investment scam firms, just to say that as bluntly as I can, whose entire job is to cycle money around in order to buy up properties and then let them bankrupt out. There are companies that literally trade in nothing but debt. There's literally companies that trade in nothing but bad practices. And when I say bad practices, I mean companies that try to rip as much financial capacity as they can out of their own customers. You get my point. There is so much worse. There is so much worse than Comcast. However, I would say Comcast is pretty damn bad. They are a company that enforces a monopoly situation in a reasonable amount of the areas they afford. They are also incredibly scummy when it comes to their tactics. Let me give you a direct example. This is because this is something that happened to a friend of mine, and this is not the first time I've seen this happen, or the last, because I've seen it happen since then. Comcast will do a thing where it's like, okay, I have Comcast, I'm moving, so I remove Comcast, and then you go to the Comcast store, you return the actual, you return the hardware to them, you sign the thing, you're done. If you ever do that with Comcast, keep your receipts. In fact, no joke, this is not exaggeration. I actually have my Comcast receipt right here. Just in case I ever need to prove that I have done any of my dealings with Comcast. Because they'll come back to you and say, hey, listen, so we know that you discontinued your service, but because your service was discontinued for this period of time, we're going to go ahead and charge you for this extra period of time. Now, we're not going to tell you about that when you come in, and we're not going to tell you about that month. We're going to tell you about that 3 months down the line when you've accrued some late charges, which we're going to affix to that, by the way. Yeah, they also tried this with me. There's a reason that receipt is right there. Literally ready to go at a moment's notice. They also like to pull crap where they will charge you extra fees for stuff just quietly. Like, just, it's on the bill. If you're paying attention, you'll see it there. And you can question them, and they'll remove it. But they rely on people not paying attention, or being too shy, or nervous, or not having the time to care to question it. This is one of the most common scummy practices. They rely on people not bothering to just get extra money out of every single one of their customers. They do this constantly, by the way. Seriously, read your internet bill. Read your Comcast bill if you have one. Charter does this too. AT&T does this too. It's scum. It's scummy tactics. That's Comcast. Getting back to the topic. So, some of you may or may not remember, I did a Loreweek some time ago where I said, hey guys, you know what Disney should do? Disney should go buy Netflix. And that wasn't just me idly talking. That was my actual amateur financial opinion at the time. I felt like it would be a perfect fit, because Netflix at the time was doing rather poorly financially, and was actually in debt in a bad way. And the Disney was trying to get into having a digital distribution service, right? Instead, Disney tried to buy Fox to accomplish the same thing. Now, the reason this is relevant is because that was some time ago. That was actually last year when I mentioned that. Since then, Netflix has now turned it around, and their most recent quarter has shown that Netflix is actually managing to pay off a huge chunk of their debt and is now doing very well. So they totally missed the mark on that one. What Comcast is doing, at least according to their public statements, although I believe this, is they're trying to buy up another aspect of cable television, I can't remember the proper term for it. It's like televised information, blah, blah, blah. Like, there's a proper term for it. But basically, they want another network, is what it really boils down to, under their ownership, so that they can use Sky as their go-to network. And, of course, this is also important, so that Comcast can finally have someone outside of the States. As of right now, Comcast has functionally no stake in anything outside of the United States of America. So this is them trying to get into foreign markets, and to be able to control their own network, which they will then affix to their own product, or be able to release out to other people who want to show, blah, blah, blah. You get the idea. This is going to be giving Comcast a huge control over this, and this needs to frickin' stop. As much as Fox and Disney, who are the other competitors here in this bidding war, are not good companies, they're better than Comcast. Now, here's the other problem. There's another niggle in this one. Please forgive me for a moment. The problem here is, for those of you not aware, Comcast secured a large amount of high finance loans in order to bid on Fox. This happened earlier this year. Now, obviously, that bid has basically been pushed away, right? Like, there's a really good chance that Comcast has failed at that bid, and there's a very good chance Disney will take Fox. Again, not set in stone, but that means Comcast still has all these loans. Now, there's two things you could do with that kind of a situation. One is to just go back to the bank and say, here, take the loans back, and just remove that debt from the books. But the other thing they could do is just use that loan money to purchase something else that would help them out. So, in case you didn't quite catch the significance of that, they have already secured loans enough to buy all of Fox and are currently putting in aggressive bids just for Sky. Depending on how much money they're willing to dump on this, they might actually get Sky, because they had secured a lot of loans to buy Fox. Anyways, that's all I got. Comcast sucks. Now, that's my only news tidbit. Now I'm just going to cut off. No, I'm kidding. What I am going to do... So I have topics that I've been saving for when there's no news to talk about on Loreweek. Because Loreweek isn't just about news. It's about, concepts and stuff, too. Oh, yeah, we're going to be talking about Ant Man 2. Don't forget, we have a spoiler discussion for Ant Man. So we'll go ahead and talk about this... and this, and this. So I've been putting off this topic for forever. Here, let me get a timestamp. Where's my list? Hang on. I don't think I wrote down my list on my computer. I wrote down my list right here. Okay, let's start with a question. How many of you have played MMOs? The vote will cut off when Loreweek is over, little Billy. Well, good, Mugen. At least I think that's a good thing. Yeah, I don't play MMOs either. I'm not currently playing FF14, Guild Wars 2, Star Trek Online. Oh, I need to do my dailies today for Star Trek Online. That's a good point. Hang on, I'm going to do my dailies while I'm talking here. Is that cool with everyone? I think I'm kidding. WoW, obviously. I've actually been a big MMO player, which is funny, considering I'm the guy who started the hashtag other players thing. Right, you know, the hashtag other players comment. We do still need to do second coil. I didn't like Guild Wars 2 Vanilla. Guild Wars 2 changed up its format significantly in the expansions. Daily systems? Ooh, that's a good topic. I don't know if we'll get to that today, but I'll jot it down for a future topic. Daily systems. Crystal Tower. Hi, Snicker friend. Thank you. I'm actually really excited to do the extreme stuff, though. That sounds awesome. But, whatever. So, MMOs are awesome. I've been playing MMOs since before MMOs was a term. That's not me trying to brag or anything. That is a statement of fact. Before the very term massively multiplayer online game existed, I have been playing MMOs. And 14, I think I'm 50-something. I don't know. I haven't really been paying attention to my level that much. And for a while there, it's always weird to me because I'm so familiar with MMOs and their concepts that I sort of naturally assume other people are, right? And then I hear people talk about, like, oh my god, there's this MMO and it has this such and such, and I'm like, but that's not how that works. Because the person talking... good example, Sci-Fi Debris has recently been talking about MMO concepts while going through Tor, and he has, like, no experience with MMOs, and so he keeps saying stuff, and I just keep cringing a little bit, because he clearly isn't experienced with MMO concepts. Anyways, I'm sure some of you understand, since I talk about some stuff that I'm not experienced with as well, which is one of the reasons why I'm seriously considering discontinuing the Witcher 3 playthrough, by the way. Or the lore run, rather. Moving on. So... MMOs really got started, well, with MUDs, actually. MMOs really got started with MUDs, and then MUDs kind of evolved into having a graphical interface, but still basically being MUDs. And so we got to the point where we started basically playing go grind and go get gear for no purpose. I would argue very strongly that Asheron's Call was the beginning of a new concept, a new era for MMOs. And that is just my opinion, but I stand by that opinion firmly. Because EverQuest, at launch, didn't really have any story, didn't really have anything to do other than go kill enemies, and go kill enemies in a dungeon, and that was basically it. That was EverQuest. Ultima Online had the same basic problem. There were quests, not in the same sense that we think of nowadays, but there were, you know, interactables you could do with NPCs and whatnot that allowed you to go through that. And then Asheron's Call came along and started having a really... It was basically the first story-focused MMO, is what Asheron's Call was. MUD, I don't remember what MUD stands for anymore. I've been using the term so damn long. A MUD was a text online adventure. A picture, you just got a DOS prompt up, and you're like, all right, go in, multi-user dungeon, thank you. And you go into an area, like you say, go east. And then it would text out, these people are here, this enemy is here. Okay, attack this enemy. One of the MUDs that I played most commonly was a Lord of the Rings MUD that my friend Eric introduced me to. Although there was a couple other MUDs before that on AOL. You know, that, like, because back when AOL was the thing you used to internet. And remember those days? Anywho, I'm getting a little off topic. Point being, pretty much ever since MMOs have existed as a concept, which really, Richard Garriott actually coined the term. It's the only thing I'll give him credit for, because I don't have a lot of respect for Richard Garriott. But, I'm sorry, I don't. But he, the idea was, okay, we're going to have a multiplayer game, which wasn't a new concept. Multiplayer games really got pushed with Doom, actually, in the early 90s. But we're going to have a multiplayer game with a persistent world, a persistent server that you constantly interact with and do stuff in. That was like, oh my god, that's great, but we're going to have to keep paying for it somehow. So the idea of a subscription, getting to my actual topic here, for an MMO just kind of naturally developed out of this concept. We need to keep paying for this, so we need to keep doing this. Back in the day, it was $10. It's like, all right, $10 a month, help keep the servers up. And then over time, that sort of developed into its own concept of, well, okay, we're already pulling this extra money in, and MMOs are making money hand over fist. Clearly, everyone needs to make an MMO. This led to the MMO boon, for better and for worse, and many, many, many terrible MMOs came out in the wake of the initial three, Ultima Online, Asheron's Call, and EverQuest. And those MMOs were all basically pie in the sky, thinking, oh my god, it's so easy to make so much money with an MMO. Go! Because the idea was all you had to do was get enough people paying monthly, you would make a tremendous amount of money. That was all you needed to do. This is even before the Korean MMOs. We're not even there yet. This was just back in the boom. And yeah, as Halo points out, and as everyone financially found out, most of those MMOs flopped very, very quickly because they weren't good. Because they were kind of crap. I mean, anyone ever play Anarchy Online? That's my favorite go-to example. Because Anarchy Online was almost a archetypal example of an MMO that was made just to capitalize on the MMO boon, and they didn't really bother to put decency or effort into it or anything like that. Never mind in the second wave when we got things like Tabula Rasa, which was actively bad. Richard Garriott. I don't know, honestly, Little Billy. I'd have to look at the timestamps and figure out which was when. Where's another one? There's one up there. Yeah, exactly, Andrew. A lot of people didn't seem to understand that. They were just like, oh, we just need to make an MMO and we'll make tons of money, hands over fist. Didn't work out. Anyways, the point is, I swear this is all on topic, because what we're talking about is the systems MMOs use to fund themselves. An MMO has to do something to fund itself. It is an actual reality that an MMO needs to maintain staff, maintenance of the servers, costs of their upload and electricity and all that fun stuff. Basically, utilities in order to keep an MMO running. Now, those costs can vary significantly based on what they're doing with the MMO. For example, Asheron's Call 1 was being left online in what's referred to as maintenance mode. Maintenance mode is when everything is left on, but no one's supporting it, no one's updating it, they're not doing any new quests, they're not doing any patching, they have no one moderating it or GMing it or anything like that. And that is a lot cheaper to do, basically because you're not hiring anyone at that point. For those of you not aware, when it comes to software in general, either development or maintenance, one of your biggest expenses is and always going to be the actual wages for people. So for an MMO that is still hiring people and is still employing people, you need to have that regular income to pay for it. It's just duh. Now, back in the day, the subscription model was just the only model, and everyone just kind of used the subscription model because that was what was already being used. This is where it gets to opinion. It is my opinion that one of the reasons that the subscription model started dying out a little bit, and as of now has almost died out completely. There are actually very, very few MMOs that are still mandatorily have a subscription fee. In fact, I can only think of 2 off the top of my head. Some have a subscription option, but I can only think of 2 that require it. That would be WoW and FF14, by the way. Anyways, one of the biggest reasons why subscription models started to die out, in my opinion, I swear I'm going to finish this sentence someday, is that boon happened with all those bad MMOs, or all those boring MMOs, or all those crap MMOs. The MMO splurge, like, here, go, play this, do this. And I think that killed the market, basically. That people were like, screw this crap. And it got to the point where people were either, it's not worth the money, or had the mentality of, if I'm going to pay 10 or 15, the money kept going up. It's an average of 16 a month right now. But, if I'm going to pay 16 a month for this, it better have some significant quality, not just now, but for my $16 a month. Now, that is fully understandable, and I totally get that. I've always felt it's a bit of a shame. For those of you not aware, it is my opinion that the subscription model is the best model for an MMO. And I admit there's a lot of historical perspective going on, a lot of hindsight going into that. But when an MMO, a good MMO, that can't be right, has a good MMO underneath the hood and actually pushes forth a subscription model, that subscription model allows them, historically speaking, to keep putting out a good product. This is not a debate, this is not an opinion, this is a fact. This is something that has been shown to be true, historically speaking. It's one of the reasons why WoW and FF14 both still have the amount of polish that they do. And if you don't know what I mean by that, let me just say that while Star Trek Online is a fantastic MMO, it is lacking in polish almost universally. It feels and plays like a free-to-play game, because it is, right? Like, it's just the format. All of that extra money goes into a lot of extra people who are spending a lot of extra time and making sure that the game is as polished keen as it can be when it comes to its actual playstyle, animations, new graphics, new content, writing, etc., etc., etc. No, this is Terra from FF9, I believe. I guess I gotta look. This is Terra from FF9. Now, no, I agree. WoW has tremendous polish. I get pissed off as WoW as much as anybody. Really, I do. But now, it's funny you bring that up, Casual, because that's actually the topic here. This was a topic that was suggested by Valvedrix like 3 months ago or something like that, to talk about the different ways that MMOs fund themselves. So I've kind of already talked about the subscription model. It really speaks for itself. Regular recurring income that allows them to cycle that money back into the game. And again, WoW and FF14 are the best examples of this, because both of them cycle that money back into the game on a regular basis. Every other MMO out there has to cycle that money in from something else and pick and choose what they spend it on. Now, if you don't know what I mean by that, to continue my point, WoW and FF14 don't say, okay, here's our budget, we have to focus on this. Instead, they say, go work on this, go work on this, go work on this. There's no restrictions on that. So WoW and FF14 both don't say we have to really focus on this to the detriment of other aspects of our game. They just improve the game universally across the board, because they can afford to do that, because they have a subscription model. This is one of the reasons I personally believe a subscription model is one of the best models available. It allows them to put forth the best product available. But there are other models, and I've written down quite a few. So that's subscription. Now, one of the other ones is, of course, the free-to-play. Now, there's a lot of different methods of free-to-play. I'm actually staring at one right now. I know you don't see it, but I've got Star Trek Online here. There's Guild Wars 2. Well, Guild Wars 2 is something else. Let's actually leave Guild Wars 2 for later. So there's Star Trek Online, Neverwinter, Tor. We'll use Tor as a one here. Exactly, Halo. Oh, I suppose I should say one thing really quick here. I'm sorry. Before we get into free-to-play stuff, let's just say, I do understand why some people don't want to pay a subscription model. I absolutely do get that. I don't want to sound judgmental or anything like that. I get it. $15 a month is another bill that you have to pay, and that is a decent amount of money, especially if you can't justify the time spent. I understand that, and I don't want to sound like I'm tossing shade or whatever, okay? For me, that's cheap because I get a lot of value out of that. But that's because I can play WoW like every evening, right? Or I can play FF14 all the time. So that $15 a month is very, very valuable to me because of how much I get out of it. Makes sense? So, free-to-play. Now, there's several different ways to implement free-to-play. The entire purpose behind free-to-play is you can, and I want to stress the word can, so it's technically possible for you to sit down and play the game without spending a dime. However, the problem there is how exactly that lines up varies from game to game. There's several different FTP models that are used. STO, for example. So in STO, the game is completely free. Now the game is designed, I mentioned earlier that in any other funding format when it comes to MMOs, they have to specifically say, I'm going to focus on this, and I'm going to focus on this, because they just don't make the money that a full subscription MMO makes. STO, for example, focuses most of their time and effort on two things: making new stuff for players to buy, and making new content for players to play. Now, personally, that is my personal favorite method of free-to-play. It is something that engenders investment in the player by continuing to ensure that they have more stuff to do and trying to make that content as high quality as they can. I have recommended STO many, many times because of that. Because the whole point is that STO is good. You know, and there's no... You get the full game experience if you don't spend a dime on STO. You are never encouraged or required to spend money. And I want to stress the way I say that. Because as I said earlier, that word can gets stretched a lot. Which brings me to Tor. Tor, you can play through the whole game without having to subscribe or becoming a Premier member or whatever. You shouldn't. You are encouraged to spend money in Tor because there are many different features and aspects of the game, and up to and including your literal leveling speed, that you have to spend money in order to get. In fact, Tor is especially insidious. So let's really dissect these systems side by side really quick. So let's switch back to STO for a second. Here's how STO makes money. First is the lifetime subs, which is just $200 or $300. Bam, big old thing. I actually have a lifetime sub myself to STO, mostly because I feel like it's worth it. I've gotten tons of play out of this game. Here you go. Here's my money. You earned it. But you can also buy. Can I just? You know what? Hang on. One moment. I have it up. I might as well show it to you. Here, okay. So here's STO, right? Just hanging out in Ryza in my full battle armor, like you do. All right, nobody needs to see me. So, STO here has jetpacks. That's why you should buy this game. Oh wait, you don't have to buy it. It's free. Woo! Jetpacks. Woo! Okay, so in STO there are a couple of methods. Like I said, there's the lifetime subscriptions. Now the lifetime sub is a decent chunk of cash, but it's also just $200 up front. Ultimately, lifetime subs are one of the smallest sources of income for STO. That's mostly a way to encourage players to keep playing. That's another concept which is tangentially related to this one, which I could talk about later. It's similar to the daily method. For those of you not aware, the philosophical purpose behind a daily method, a daily system, is to keep you logging in and keep you playing, to artificially create a sense of you being invested in the game. Whether that succeeds or not depends on its specific implementation. But I digress. Oh, speaking of dailies, hang on, I do need to do my daily here really quick. Give me a second. Boop. By the way, I did the last mission of the Gamma Quadrant thing. It was awesome. I won't spoil it right now. It was just awesome. You should go do it. Anyways. So the lifetime sub thing is another method of trying to get you into the game and keep you invested in the game. Because the lifetime sub gives you a couple of basic features. The most obvious one is the increased inventory space. Pretty much all this extra space right here is the increased inventory space. The real benefit, though, is this thing. You see in this... is my cursor showing up? I can't tell if my cursor's showing up. Whatever. In the lower left, there's 500 Zen. That's the in-game currency. Now, I get a stipend of 500 Zen every month for being a lifetime sub. Now, just about everything in this game costs about 3,000 to 6,000 Zen. The point there is that the lifetime sub's purpose is to encourage you to keep playing the game and thinking that, oh, right, I want to go buy such and such, and therefore keeping you invested in the game and hoping that you will then spend real money on the game. Make sense? Now, the real way they make money is twofold. First is just buying stuff you want. I can actually demonstrably talk about this one because I actually bought something recently in real money in this game. And that is stuff like this. You can just buy ships. You can just buy ships. I want to buy the Andorian Pilot Escort Tier 6. I want the Andromeda Cruiser. I want these awesome... These ships are so cool looking. Look at these things. This is so cool looking. Anyways, I want to buy the new Cardassian ships, you know, or I want to buy a bundle of Federation ships, or I want to buy... Come on, there's something... Gotta be something really cool here. There we go. I want to buy this thing. You can just buy a ship. Boom. So you buy these ships. These are... not super cheap. Here's the one I actually bought right there. I went ahead and went for the carrier. These are not that expensive, but then again, each one of these you'll notice is about 3,000 to about 6,000 Zen. Now, if you go to buy Zen here, you can see how much that is. That's basically 30 bucks. It's a really simple one-to-one. 100 Zen is $1. So you can see right there, that's about $30 to buy a ship. That's not super cheap. And you can see how that would add up as multiple people buy these ships. They also go out of their way to make all of these ships worth it. I would argue strongly that most of these are not pay to win, so much as pay to be cool, if that makes any kind of sense. It's similar to the cosmetic thing, but does have gameplay benefits, so it's kind of an in-between thing. An example of that, if I could find it, here, let's just do this. I might not be able to see it, since I'm on my Federation character right now. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be able to see it. No, not like Overwatch, because there is gameplay benefit. It's just not a better. It's not like you get this and therefore you win. It's you get this and it has this additional thing, which is kind of neat. I was going to show you the Burrell. There's actually a Burrell you can buy that allows you to fire while cloaked. It has a special console that lets you fire while cloaked, specifically a torpedo. It's the Star Trek VI Burrell, basically. And, yeah, I think I can't see it because I'm on my Federation or something. Whatever. Point being that ship has a cool factor. You can shoot while cloaked. Now, that is not super useful. It's got its uses, but that's mostly there for a bit of cool factor or for PvP if you're interested in that. Now, by contrast, there are some ships that are pay to win. And let me see if I can find the big one. It should be right around here-ish. There's a lot of ships that you can buy, as you can see. Here it is. I think it's this one specifically. This is the Scimitar. You may recognize this from Star Trek Nemesis as the Mary Sue ship. This isn't true anymore, I believe, but at least at one point in time, this is the best ship in the game. It was just the best ship in the game. There was no arguing this. The amount of damage output this thing could do was ridiculous. It's funny because it's actually only $25 compared to some of the other ones. So this is one method by which they generate money. Now, I'm actually totally in favor of this. I really am. It's a very careful line that they dance. Like, if you want a Defiant, you can get a Defiant. It's not the best ship in the game. It doesn't necessarily make you better than your Prometheus, which you can get for free. But it's the Defiant. It's cool. No, Ulmerich, absolutely not. No. Although there are other ways. That's a separate topic, and there's ways around that. So yeah, the whole point of this, obviously, is while they've got their cool ships where they do the retrofits or whatever, they also have the ships that are designed to be like, I really like the Excelsior, so I want to fly around as the Excelsior. I like the Enterprise B, so I want to fly around as the Enterprise B, right? I'm with that. $20, plomp, done. The thing I don't fully agree with, but I can at least tolerate, is this. These are keys. See these things? Keys are basically $1 each, I want to say. Yeah. Now that doesn't sound... Here it is, $1.25 each. There you go, bam. Now you might be thinking, oh, that's not much. In which case, congratulations, you're the target audience for this thing. The whole point of keys is they can open loot boxes. Now, they're not typical loot boxes, because there's a whole other thing going into this. In fact, I have a couple on me, so these are the lock boxes. Lock boxes are dropped as you run around and fight stuff. They are semi-common loot. And which lock boxes drop depends on where we're at in the season. Each lockbox follows the same general format, and I think it'll actually show me here. Here we go. Boom. So it'll actually say the kind of stuff that it can drop. And it will drop a lot of this stuff. Now, lockboxes are generally worth it, quote-unquote. In other words, you generally get a good amount of value out of a lockbox, even if you don't actually get what you want out of them. Lockboxes contain low-buy crystals. Low-buy crystals allow you to buy... That's a whole other currency that allow you to buy other unique stuff. And that's all good stuff, it's worth noting. That's the luck protection mechanic of the lockboxes in STO. In other words, if you open 50 lockboxes, you're not guaranteed to get what you want, but you are guaranteed to get a bunch of low-buy, which allows you to buy stuff that you want. Make sense? It's a form of luck protection. A lot of lockbox systems do this. Anyways, then you get some credits and reputation, marks, currency, stuff you can do to craft. You can get tech. And of course, the most important thing, every lockbox generally has one really awesome thing, like the Discovery ship, I believe, is the one that comes in. Yeah, here it is right here. You can either get the Sarcophagus or the Crossfield class ship. In other words, the Discovery ships. That's what most people actively want out of the lockboxes, is to get the one unique ship that comes out of them. Those ships are usually either very good ships or very, I guess, unique ships. In other words, the only way to get the USS Discovery is to open the Discovery lockbox, for example. Now this system, yeah, I know, right? I've seen a lot of people in that too who thought it's really strange. So this system is not something I'm fully in favor of. It's more like something I can tolerate. Unfortunately, I don't have hard data on how much money they make in just buy the thing you want versus buy the key to open the loot box. I would imagine they make decent money on the lockboxes, though, because if I was to open up chat right now and turn on show me which people... So this is the other insidious thing STO does. By default, there's a chat option in turned on, which says when anybody in the game, because it's all one server, so when anybody opens a lockbox and gets a super mega thing, like it's a really nice item, like the discovery I just mentioned, there's a notification that shows up saying such and such just got this reward out of this lockbox, and it'll show up here. You can turn that off, and I highly recommend you do. But you can see why that's kind of insidious. Hey, this person just got this. Hey, this person just got this. It's actually one of the same mentalities that goes into casinos, where they use a completely separate stereo system. This is not a joke. They use a completely separate stereo system in order to showcase the sounds when someone wins, so that people who are filled with fear... Thank you very, very much, Epic Da Vinci, as ever. Much appreciated, sir. Thank you. So when someone wins in a casino on a slot machine or a poker machine or whatever, other people hear you winning, and that's all they hear. They don't hear the do-do-do-do-do, because they use two different speaker systems on a lot of these things. The one that you hear and the one that they hear. Make sense? So in other words, yeah, it's just kind of showing you, hey, this person just got this awesome item, and hey, this person just got this item, and so forth and so on. Exactly, it's designed to make you it's designed to make you focus on the win, and not the 50 losses that it took to get to that win. It is insidious, and that's why I'm not really in favor of it. By the way, one thing I do like that they do with the summer events, this is kind of off topic here, but you see that ship out there? That is the ship that I'm currently working on with the dailies. And they do this every time. Every time there's a ship you can get from the summer dailies, they actually they have the ship just hovering out there so you can see what it looks like. But anyways. So point being, STO is, in my opinion, the best free-to-play MMO we've ever had. As you can see, it still has its flaws, but for the most part, I agree with their mentality. They focus their time and effort on the content, and they do have really good content. The story is the reason to play STO, as far as I'm concerned. And they allow you to just buy stuff that you want, and I do like that. But it still has its flaws, and that's mostly because, as I mentioned earlier, MMOs do have to pay for themselves. Which brings me to Tor. Now, I don't actually have Tor installed, so I'm not even going to try and do that. Why would I have Tor installed? That's ridiculous. But let's talk about Tor. Now, Tor uses a much worse system overall, in my opinion. It's still free to play, and a lot of the same concepts still exist. However, in Tor, you have to pay for game features, and the way they define game features isn't convenience or additional features. It's they pull features away from you. Now, let me try and explain what I mean by this. A lot of MMOs use a rest system, for example. In Tor, the ability to garner rest is a feature you have to pay for. A lot of the actual amount of experience you gain in Tor is nerfed unless you pay to be one of the two things. Hang on, I'm going to pull up the actual names here, so I'm speaking from specifics. Give me a moment. Blah, 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 blah. Oh, this is going to tell me? Really? Anyways, Tor has the in-game currency. They're called cartel coins. Now, there are a insane... I think you're right. I think it's preferred. There are an insane amount of things you can buy with cartel coins. I would love to have a list, but again, I don't have the game installed right now. Yes, Anthony. So here's the biggest problem with Tor. Tor started at X. You with me so far? At X, they then said so Tor was originally a subscription MMO, and that was actually fine. The problem was Tor had many issues at launch. It felt like an MMO made by people who'd never made an MMO before. So Tor kind of tanked a little bit financially at launch, and so they had to pull away from the subscription model for the reasons I mentioned earlier and switch to a free-to-play model. Thing is, they got so aggressive with it, it's actually silly. Now, I've got a picture. This is going to have to do. This picture here. Give me a second. Let me just save this locally really quick. Oh, no, it wasn't as bad as FF14.1. Nothing's as bad as FF14.1. But the problem was it had issues everywhere, and they didn't know how to run an MMO. That's the other problem. I know that sounds like a weird thing, but if you've paid attention to MMOs as much as I have, you'll notice that people tend to make the same mistakes over and over and over when they aren't experienced in working on MMOs. So this is kind of a shot of what I'm talking about here. This is the cartel page. I'm going to move this over here, shift this up here, kind of shift it to the right a bit so we still got chat. Or maybe I'll just move it back behind chat, something like that. There we go. Okay. So, whoops. As you can see, this is the cartel system. You've got the whole market page on the left. Are featured, newly added, starfighters, packs, bundles, cosmetics, unlocks, equipments, and consumables. Now, I want to stress that for a second. The starfighter is obvious. The packs and bundles are obvious. The fact that they have separate categories for packs and bundles is stupid, but moving on. Then they have cosmetic. Then they have unlocks. Now, unlocks is the really important one. Unlocks is what I was talking about earlier. I don't have a list in front of me, please forgive me, but there are many different things you can unlock, like the ability to have a mount, the ability to have a mount at an earlier level, the ability to have the sprint button at an earlier level, the ability to have more inventory space, the ability to mail more things, the ability to have rest state, the ability to access certain raids or dungeons, the ability to have certain type of crafting. You know, unlocks means exactly what it sounds like. You're unlocking a part of the actual game mechanics. Like, as Halo just mentioned there, the ability to equip purples is something you have to unlock. Think about that for a second. There are an enormous amount of unlocks in this game. It's actually silly. It's actually even more silly than that, because most of these unlocks go away once you get preferred status. You get several things unlocked. If you're a subscription, you get everything unlocked. You have access to everything. You can already see why that's insidious, but here's the worst part. If you just sat down and paid for all of the individual unlocks, it costs a lot more than just to subscribe to the game for many months. It's actually a lot of money to pay for all the unlocks individually. Like, a lot of money. Yes, Preacher. That is not a joke. Now, if you subscribe, but stop subscribing, you stay preferred. That is correct. Or at least it was last time I played. So theoretically, my account would be a preferred account right now, because I have subscribed to Tor, so I stay a preferred. I was hoping for, like, a list. Give me a second. Oh, here we go. Perfect. Here's the guide. Hopefully. So in order to get to preferred, you need to spend... you have to be subscribed for at least a month, or spend... spend a certain amount of money, it's not telling me how much, on cartel coins. So, okay, you stay preferred. It's not telling me... Okay, so that's right. Okay, so here's the limitations. If you are preferred, you have a credit cap of 350,000 credits. You have a chat limitation. In fact, if you're free to play, you actually can't use chat at all until a certain point. You have 4? Oh, no, apparently they've pushed that up to 12. You used to have 4 character slots, so it looks like they've gotten that better. Ah, here we go. Here's the list of stuff you get if you're preferred. You can equip... Okay, no, this is not... Hang on. Tell me what is limited. God, this is the dumbest guide ever. Of course it's not going to tell me flat out. That would just be ridiculous. Okay, so there's only so many war zones you can do a week. There's only so many raids you can do. Oh, apparently you can't do raids at all. Never mind. You actually cannot do raids as a preferred. You cannot get Galactic Command gear. I'm not actually even sure what that is. You also cannot get Artifact gear. There are some dungeons you can't do. They're not saying which. Blah, blah, blah. You can do all... Yeah, you can do all quests. All quests are unlocked. No worries on that one. Apparently, you don't get access to strongholds. Crafting is severely hindered for preferred players, as you can only queue up crafting items per companion at a time instead of infinite queue. Holy crap! Okay, that for those of you who are not aware of how the crafting works in Tor, that's terrible. Because crafting takes time, real time. And what you're supposed to do is you just craft up a queue. It's like, okay, I want you to make these 12 things. That'll take a few hours. But you can only queue one at a time as a preferred. That's basically check back every X minutes or X hours. That is crazy. All players can try out role-playing for free. Really? Apparently you can do uprisings as a preferred. That's nice. Or you can just subscribe, which unlocks everything. Anyways, let me just summarize. Tor's system is terrible. I'm sorry. I mean no offense to Tor, but Tor's system is terrible. It is aggressively geared towards encouraging you to spend money on it, or to just subscribe. And that's part of why I call it so insidious. It would be bad enough if it was just the cartel market, right? If it was like STO, but with the cartel market, that would be bad, but I could live with that. But the problem is all of this crap that's removing game mechanics from you and removing some of the literal features of the game and removing your ability to do certain actions or do certain quests or do certain areas. I mean, is the game polished enough to justify a subscription? That's a good question. That's a very debatable question. I would say no, because I think Tor is not a well-designed MMO. It does have some good stories in it, some legitimately good stories in it. But the problem is Tor should not be an MMO. It does not feel like an MMO. Well, okay, that's not true. No, I would not do Tor. It feels like an MMO that came out in the late 90s or early 2000s. Let me put it to you that way. There are so many issues with combat. There are so many issues with area design and quest flow. There are so many issues with gain rate. There's so many issues with progression. Almost everything that makes up how you play through an MMO, other than the story, is, in my opinion, flawed in Tor, and therefore not worth the sub. Now, that being said, if you are dedicated to playing the story, just sub. Which is why I say this is so insidious. Because all of this crap basically becomes irrelevized the moment you subscribe. The moment you just plop down the money per month and say, fine, here's my 15 bucks, all of this hassle just kind of goes away and it's just back to being a regular MMO with issues and flaws, but there you go. So they are aggressively encouraging you to pay for their stuff in the constant spam you're getting. Let's just get rid of that. They're aggressively encouraging you to that with the spam. You get a login. Every time you log in, it's like, here's the cartel page. In the way that the game is structured to try and be like, hey, look what this guy got, or look at this cool thing this person has, or look at this equipment that this guy has. Or you could just sub. I mean, that's up to you. You see the problem. Now, there are other games that use the free-to-play model, but I wanted to compare and contrast STO and Tor directly, because I feel like that's a good example of the variance you can have from using the exact same system in different ways. Because STO and Tor are both free-to-play games. They're both free-to-play format. Sort of, Micromano? Kind of? I'm going to go with kind of. That's my answer to you. Because, as of right now, without the leveling boost in place, because to my knowledge it's gone, you're going to have some issues. Especially when you get to about... what's the name of the prison planet? I can't think of its name right now. Oh god, I just realized I was talking about a Star Trek and a Star Wars topic. That didn't occur to me until you said that, Uthor. That really didn't. Yeah, Belsavis. I think it's Belsavis. Anyways, there's other methods of free-to-play MMOs, but the third major type of funding an MMO is weird. The third major type was more feasible back in the day. I honestly don't think it's feasible anymore, and apparently ArenaNet agrees with me. Because the other method is what I call buy and forget. If you go buy Guild Wars 1 right now, you own the game. Congratulations. The end, right? You now own the MMO, and you can just play it through infinitely and forever as much as you want to. Now, there are a couple of additional things that you can pay for in Guild Wars 1 to make things happen, but that's the pay and forget. You have purchased the game, you can now play it forever. Now, Guild Wars 1 isn't actually what I would call an MMO. It's like an in-between. I call it a CRPG, or in other words, a cooperative cooperative multiplayer RPG. There we go. CMRPG. The encapsulated. The communal dance simulator. Now, Guild Wars 2 does the same thing, but different. That's why I wanted to say Guild Wars 1 more specifically. Because Guild Wars 1 basically funded itself on those sales. Now, Guild Wars 1's method was actually similar to EverQuest's, but in a different way. Let me rewind a little bit. For those of you who don't remember, back in the day, the way EverQuest made its money, and arguably also one of the reasons why EverQuest started declining so much in popularity, was EverQuest had a subscription fee, just like all older MMOs did. But EverQuest also came out with a new expansion, putting this in quote-unquotes, every like 6 months. In some cases, it was actually quicker than 6 months. And each expansion was what we nowadays refer to as a patch. You get me? To use an equivalent, imagine if every time a new patch came out in WoW, you had to pay for it. Like the patch that added the Broken Shore as the playable area, with all of the new quests for the classes and the new class mounts and all that. Imagine if you had to pay for that. And then you had to pay for the Argus patch. Like, to give a parallel. That's what EverQuest used to do. Now, it is my opinion that is one of the reasons EverQuest started to fall behind so many other MMOs. Because, holy crap. Now, those expansions were only like $20 each, but still, you had a subscription fee and then you had to buy each patch as it comes. And it's also worth noting that EverQuest got a little bit bleh about this at a certain point in its history, especially when the Plane of Knowledge, I want to say, expansion came out. I forget which one that was called, please forgive me. But it got to the point where each expansion, each patch that they sent out, not only added a new area with new content, but that new stuff you could get there was just incredibly superior to the older stuff. Like, way better experience, or way better loot, or whatever. It added to a insane inflation and power creep. And it was being done for obvious reasons, to force people to say, oh man, I have to do this. I have to buy this new patch. No, Necro, that is absolutely not what Blizzard does. You don't quite understand, so let me try to use a WoW parallel. Imagine if you're playing WoW, and then all of a sudden they're like, hey, there's this new patch that's coming out. It's adding Death Knights. Pay for the patch. Oh, okay. Okay, now there's a new expansion. There's a new patch coming out. This is adding Demon Hunters. Go pay for that. Okay. Now here's this new expansion coming out. It's adding raids, as in the very concept of raids. Pay for it. And so forth and so on. And again, this was happening every 5 to 6 months. So it was creating a gear treadmill that was getting kind of crazy. Now, what Necro was saying is technically correct, but in a very strange way. Like, yes, Legion gear is superior to Warlord's gear, because it's a new expansion, an actual expansion, with new zones, and new content, and new story, and new dungeons, and new quests, and new classes in some cases, and new races in other cases. It's a fully fledged out. I have issues with WoW, but each expansion to WoW has been an expansion. It's been a nice, huge chunk of additional content. when a new tier of rating is added to WoW, they don't make you pay for that. Anyways. So, getting back to my point. Guild Wars 2, which is probably the best example of a fire and forget right now, MMO, is like, hey, you know what? I have Guild Wars 2 installed. Give me a second. You buy the game and you've got it, right? And the way you keep having new content is you pay for that new content. Now, indeed a decent amount of the new content is free with a proviso. This is kind of an interesting little method they have. So there's 3 types of... Apparently I'm patching. Give me a minute. There's 3 types of stuff in Guild Wars 2 that you get for new content-wise. There's the stuff you get for having bought an expansion or the base game. There's the stuff you can buy that's like a story arc. And then there's the stuff when you buy another expansion. Okay? So I guess that's actually 2 things, technically. Give me a second. There we go. Log in. Play. No. I don't have this set up for streaming, so you're going to have to give me a moment. Hey, it's chat. There's Guild Wars 2. Alright, so here's Guild Wars 2. Now, for the most part, Guild Wars 2 is, like, you play and forget, right? So here, let's just hop into the game. I'll kind of show you what I'm talking about. Now, Guild Wars 2 Vanilla had massive, massive issues basically across the board. In general, I don't recommend Guild Wars 2 Vanilla, because I don't like it. And it had massive issues. Those issues have gotten a lot better in their expansions. Oh, come on, load! It's just Lion's Arch. There we go. Woo! Alright. Oh, hang on. Gotta open my daily chest, because daily mechanics are daily. Welcome to Lion's Arch. Very pretty. Bloom, as far as the eye can see. A lot of players on. Although I'm not sure how many of these people really play this game. So, let me try to remember my key bindings in this game. No. Is this it? This is it. Okay. So here's what I wanted to show you, really. So, I am Xaladar Bastion. So this is the stuff you get with the vanilla game. This is the vanilla story arc. Okay? Now, there's issues with this. I don't want to get into that right now. Then there's, like, the in-between thing they did, which was the Scarlet War. Okay? Then there's the Living World stuff. You notice this is all locked for me, and I have to buy it. Do you see that right there? 200 gems. That's the cost to buy this particular story arc. Now, the really weird thing is Living World Season 4? Or 3? I think it's 4, actually. Yep, okay. Living World Season... So here's the weird thing. When you... as these Living World patches go live... This is just their story quest continuing. As these Living World patches go live, you can log in while it's going live, while it's been launched for like a week or 2. I forget the exact range, please forgive me, but there is a period of time during which you can log in, and simply by logging in, you now own that. Once that period of time has passed, you have this problem, where you have to go back and actually buy it. So you can kind of see how that's a weird system, because it encourages you to keep logging in, even if you're not doing anything, but at the same time, if you don't, it's actually very penalizing. Now, buying all this stuff, 200 gems each, would take some actual money. And you know what? If the reason this is still locked is because I haven't actually bought Path of Fire yet. But I do have this patch, this story arc unlocked, because, you know, duh, right? Long live the Lich, by the way. Because Paolo Ajoko's back, for those of you who don't understand what that means. Anyways, so that's their main system of producing content. Now, this gets to a problem for stuff like this, where there's a lot of quests there for 200 gems each. So that's kind of But then things get much worse. So this is the in-game store. This is how Guild Wars 2 actually makes its money right here. No, to my knowledge, they have never reduced the price, as I just kind of showed you a little bit. So there are a lot of things you can buy in this game. A ludicrous amount of things. And some of these are cosmetic, and some of these are not. So, you know, here's some cosmetic stuff, for example. Oh, you could get some dyes to dye your character. Dyes, of course, are limited use, so, you know, you buy one, you use it, you've used it. Or you can get new cosmetics. Hey, here's new cosmetics. Or, you know, you can get keys to open lock boxes, because that's a thing. Or this thing, which allows you to get better salvage. It's actually... It would be more difficult to list something that you can't buy with with real money than something you can. It is basically everything, including stuff like this, the experience booster, or the airship pass, or, you know, the ability to access a bank on the fly, or something that gives you a bunch of stuff, like including new slots for your inventory or your bank, or transmutation items, the banker golem. You get the point. There's a lot of stuff here. Now, I'm trying to find it, and I'm not sure where it is. Hang on. Please forgive me. I haven't looked at this store all that much because I haven't paid a penny into this store, and probably never will. Maybe it's here? No, I'm not sure where it is. You can buy gear, too. Let me just get to that. You can also buy gear. Now, I don't think it's straight up pay to win, but I don't know if that's true. When Guild Wars 2 came out, you could pay to win. You could buy the best gear in the game. I don't know if that's actually still true anymore, so consider that outdated information. Obviously, you can buy gold with gems, which is what Methkim is mentioning here. As you can see, I've only got 13 gold. I can get tons of gold, or I could get tons of gems. You can just exchange back and forth. And of course, there's actually the auction house, which is the duh. Auction house is fairly self-explanatory. Anyways, this is how Guild Wars 2 actually makes its money. I can say that definitively because they have released their... They have released their information on this. Now, you can get a lot... This is another one of those, you can avoid this, but you are encouraged not to. There are many mechanics in Guild Wars 2 which encourage you to either keep playing the game, in other words, keeping you invested and hoping that you're going to spend money on it, or just go ahead and spend money on it and just get it over with. There's a lot of convenience stuff that you can buy with real money in Guild Wars 2, and apparently, based on those numbers, a lot of people do. No judgment. So this is the fire and forget model. You can already see the problem with this. However, I will give Guild Wars 2 this. Unlike Tor, which I will never forgive Tor for this, sorry, but unlike Tor, you can you can smoothly play the entire game without spending a dime after having paid for the game. There's nothing forcing you not to. There's nothing holding you back. There's nothing wrecking your playing experience because you haven't spent additional money on it. You can just play the game and go through it, for whatever that's worth. By the way, do you see 86% world completion? That used to be 100%. That's how insane I am. Anyways, moving on. Yes, you can play smoothly, completely, and without any issues. I can say that from experience because I bought the game and have had no issues playing the game. There are other issues related to this game that are unrelated to the pay method, but you can still do it. So, I am still willing to give Guild Wars 2 credits because, as Kay says, it may encourage you, but it does not force you. It's Tor. I'm sorry to keep going back to Tor, but Tor pisses me off so much because of how much it actively penalizes you. Not that I'm aware of, Alvatrix. No, I'm pretty sure you still need to pay for the game in order to get it. Oh yeah, by the way, I'm just going to say this really quick while we're here. You know what the biggest problem with Guild Wars 2 is by far? A lack of a proper aggro system and a lack of a proper healing mechanic. Just saying it. They could have made that work. They didn't. Moving on. So, these are all the methods, the basic methods by which that you can go ahead and have a way to fund your MMO. It's not so much their lack of a trinity as that the game is designed around the trinity and then they remove the trinity. I cannot tell you how absolutely frustrating it is to just die because things one-shot you, or die because you can't heal, and then, so basically, I cannot tell you how many battles in this game boil down to fight until you die, and then there's people running around who are dedicated rezzers, who all they're doing is rezzing people, and then you get up and then you fight until you die, because there's no healing and there's no aggro. If they had designed the game with the lack of Trinity in mind, it would have worked. They didn't, and that's my problem with it. Anyways. So it gets really, really frustrating. Like, you don't see that a lot on some of the main story quests, but anytime you fight anything big, it's just people die, people die. I was one of those dedicated rezzers I mentioned earlier for a portion of my life, because I got tired of dying all the time. It was just... It stopped being fun, you know? Now, there are other permutations of these models that I've shown you guys. But these three are the same basic... These are the three basic ways to fund an MMO. You have a subscription, you have methods by which they can pay, or you pay for the game up front. You'll notice, however, all three of these systems all have free-to-play things in them. Have you noticed that? WoW and FF14 both have the ability to buy in-game mounts or in-game cosmetics. STO and Tor both obviously have the in-game store, and Guild Wars 2 also has the in-game store. I'm not sure there is an MMO anymore that doesn't have some kind of free-to-play mechanic, or free-to-play store, excuse me, of some extent or another, which is probably just a sign of the times. I'm not sure what I think about that. I guess it depends on a case-by-case basis, but anyways. Which MMO do I think best encourages role-playing? EVE Online. I can say that easily. Now, well, yeah, FF14 has a game store. The count is pulling it technically on me. FF14 does have a store where you can buy in-game stuff, if you want me to be 100% conclusive with my terminology. In other words, FF14 has an in-game store. I can even pull it up right now. Let's see what kind of stuff I can buy in FF14. Let's see. I could buy a mount, some kind of phoenix-looking mount. I could buy Minfilia's outfit. I could buy this weird armor. I don't know what that is. I could buy some weird... I don't know what this is. I don't know what it is. I could buy dye. You can actually just buy pots of dye. If advertisement was effective in MMOs, do I think it would be a good way to fund them? No. Now, that's actually a complicated topic, but it's worth noting that I'm of the opinion that advertising is overvalued and oversaturated. Now, obviously, I've talked many, many, many times about how I feel that marketing is done wrong nowadays. You know, buses. I keep referring to the buses. But in general, marketing budgeting and wasting money on marketing stints is, in my opinion, one of the biggest problems facing a lot of gaming developers and gaming publishers in the modern era, and for the last, like, 20 years. So, on the one hand, I don't think it would generate as much buzz or as much actual additional revenue cycled into the overall system as people might think. And otherwise, I'd rather not get a freaking ad in my MMO, if I'm just being honest. You know? Like, I admit, for those of you who are ever wondering why I get ads on YouTube, I actually turn off ads on YouTube to try and support them. To try and support any of the people I actually watch. But ads are not what you'd call an effective method of advertising. As weird as that may sound. So, we'll see. Anyways, I guess that's actually all I've got on that. What's our time? How long have we been talking? We've been talking for almost 2 hours. Jesus Christ. So we'll save our other topics for later. I'm going to talk about Nielsen ratings later on. I've been talking about difficulty later on. We'll discuss that later. Let's talk about Ant Man. So this is your big warning. Spoilers, 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 spoilers. I'm going to adjust the title to make sure people know. Spoilers. We're talking about Ant Man 2. Spoilers. Spoilers. Ant Man and Wasp. Spoilers. Spoilers, 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 spoilers. Spoilers, 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 spoilers. 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 Is no one going to stick around for the Ant Man discussion? I mean, we could put it off another week if nobody's seen it. Did I like it? Yes. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm willing to say while we still don't have... while we're still in the spoiler things. Spoilers, 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 spoilers. There. New strategy game. God, I don't know. I mean, honestly, there aren't that many great strategy games in my opinion. I mean, there's a few, but you've probably played all of them that I could mention. Have you tried Endless Legend? It's a very unique one. It's very limiting. It's basically, imagine you're playing a conquest game, right, Preacher? And the world you're on is literally dying. So you're kind of on a timer in your conquest, because your world is literally dying. There's also... oh, you should totally play Master of Orion 4. That's actually a good game. I highly recommend that one. Pick up Master of Orion 4. It's good. It's not quite as good as Stellaris, but it's up there. I actually need to AFK really quick, so this is your last chance to bow out. So don't say any spoilers until I come back, okay, guys? Then that'll be our cutoff point. I will be right back. Sorry. Alright. Spoilers are officially off the hook. When the mid-credit scene started, I realized what was going to happen immediately. And I was like, oh no. You can actually ask third. He's sitting right next to me. I was like, oh god, no. No! Because it just made so much sense immediately. Because he is now in the quantum realm, which we know disagrees with regular matter, and we know that he survived. That is just custom paste for them doing something with that in the future. Yay. So Max Time mentions the excellent writing of this film. I'm hesitating here because so let me just start. I loved the film. I really did. In fact, I liked Ant Man 2 a lot better than Ant Man 1. Ant Man 2 is in the running for one of my favorite Marvel films. It was really, really good. Which is why it's so weird that its writing is so weird. Let me explain what I mean by that. This is pure speculation, but I really feel like they sat down and had some really good and very talented writers, and they were really going to write the best story they could, and then someone showed up and said, here, you need to fill these bullet points. Make these bullet points happen. And so there's sections of the movie which are actually kind of dumb. Like, actively dumb. And you can tell, each time it's so obvious that they're fighting because they need an action sequence. Or that they're doing this big chase sequence because they need a big chase sequence. Or they're having this particular drama because they need to have this drama. Each time it felt like they were just checking off a list when it was actively stupid to do so and was happening purely because plot. It's even more egregious because they are very smart about how they use their power, the shrinking, enlarging power, throughout the course of the film, except during these mandatory sequences where they just suddenly get stupid about it and don't use it how they could. You know what I mean? It really felt like there were just some mandated, this has to happen moments throughout the film. That's why I say the writing was weird, because under normal circumstances, I would say those scenes are written badly. Because they are. Because they're just Hollywood schlock. But then there's the rest of the movie, which is written brilliantly. Like, not just good, really good. As Max Time mentioned, they knew how to keep their pace and their beat going very brilliantly, with going from serious to humorous to plot point to serious to humorous to plot point. The pacing and flow of this film was fantastic, except for those bullet points. Hi, Bragwin. It did, Rax. It did. There are several moments that are like, why didn't we do this? And they don't really answer the question. It's just, you know? They did a really good job with this film. This would, without question, be in my running for the top 5 of MCU films, if not for the checkpoint problem that kept showing up. Even with the checkpoint problem, I would have to think about it, but this film still probably qualifies in the top 5 for me. It also is probably worth noting that what's-his-face, I can't think of his name right now, please forgive me. I'm just going to look his name up really quick. Was involved in the writing. Oh, what's his damn name? Paul Rudd was involved in the writing in this film. And in my opinion, it shows. Paul Rudd's really talented in general. He really knows his stuff. And I think that at least part of the good writing was because of Paul Rudd. Because he's got that track record, you know? Just a couple highlights before we get into more detailed stuff. I love how there's no villain in this film. Did you notice that? There's no real villain of the film. How weird is that? How often have you seen a superhero movie that doesn't really have a villain? Can we even name another one that's done that? Nope, the Southern Gentleman does not count. He really doesn't. And I mean this sincerely. This is not me pulling it technically. The Southern Gentleman is comic relief. Every time that guy shows up, he is there for humorous purposes, not for being a serious threat in any manner. I have to go no further than the truth serum scene to make my point. It's not a truth serum. Truth serum is just Hollywood crap. No, man. I'm sorry. Just remembering it is making me laugh. What's his name? I need to know his name. I can't think of his name. Man, this guy was super fine, man. That guy, what's his name? He's so awesome. He is legitimately my favorite part of this film. I can't think of his damn name. Michael Pena? Is that him? Yeah, that's it. The guy who played Luis. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing his name, but he is great! He is so great! Gush! I cannot gush enough about Luis. He was fantastic. Like, I cannot overemphasize that enough. I mean, the whole film was great, but he was absolutely amazing. Hi. So, no real villain. Now, you could argue Ghost, and you could argue Southern Guy. I would argue no on both cases. Ghost was desperate, but not villainous, and not evil. She was just desperate. And she has a fairly large arc, and is very well fleshed out throughout the course of the film. And of course, Southern Gentleman, as I said, while he certainly is far more villainous, he's also someone who is comic relief. He's not a serious threat. He's never a serious threat at any point in time. Like, the only time he ever comes close to being a serious threat is when he pulls out his... They're like, okay, we're going to shoot you guys. And then they get tased. Yeah. And by the way, speaking of someone who has been in literally non-stop pain, I found myself sympathizing with Ghost a lot. I understand exactly what it feels like to always be in pain. It messes with you really badly. Anyways. So, no central villain. And the other thing, and this one really amused me as well, they actually managed to make an ensemble cast. Most MCU movies have a fairly tight-knit cast. 4 or 5 characters, and most of it focuses around those 4 or 5 characters. Iron Man 1 is probably the archetypal example of this. There's Iron Man, there's Slane? Oh god, I can't think of his name. He's a great villain, I can't think of his name. Bob. Pepper. We could probably stop there, honestly. But Ant Man and the Wasp had a huge cast and a surprising amount of screen time for all of them. Like, there were very few characters who were just, hi, we're here, and then we're gone. There were only 2 characters which were really, just basically cameos. The ex-wife and her husband. I can't think of their names right now, please forgive me. Stain, thank you. Obadiah Stane. Or maybe it was Slane, I don't know. He was awesome. He was a great villain. But getting back to my point, aside from the ex-wife and her husband, almost every character, every named character, had a significant presence in the movie. And that's harder to pull off than it sounds. I think they did a really good job of that, too. And having them all coordinate and move together. Oh, yeah, that reminds me. And they were. In the tiny little scenes they were there, there was the recurring gag of, they can't just come in here and do this. Actually, they can. What? Well, they can't just do this. Well, actually, they do. Well, they're gonna... No, they can do that too, honey. Even the FBI guy, I actually liked him. Which is the other person I've heard some people say was the villain, the FBI guy. I don't think he qualifies at all as a villain. He was kind of terrifying, because he was a really good example of the kind of villainy that's just doing its job. You know what I mean? He's a nice guy. Like, he is. He's kind of geeky, and he's kind of a dork, but he's a nice guy, and he even is like, yeah, hey, you want to go get a bite to eat? I mean, you want to go do... No, okay, that's cool. He's trying to learn the magic trick, But he's just doing his job. He is an antagonist because it's his paycheck. And to me, that's probably one of the most terrifying things about the film in general. Because we're seeing the consequences of the oh god, I can't remember, the Sokovian Accords right there, in that nice, decent people are basically being forced into being antagonists for no other reason than it's their job, right? Now, I mentioned the no-villain thing. I want to say one more thing about the no-villain thing. Did you notice that one of the only people who qualifies as an actual scumbag villain is one who died? You know who I'm talking about? Bingo. The FBI guy who wanted a promotion. Not the guy we've been talking about earlier, who was cool. The other guy who had a much lesser role and was the mole. The guy who was selling out and was like, oh, I want a promotion. That guy was probably the most actively villainous and evil character in this film. And he died. Oh, God. So I got to give special praise. Ginger Spartan points out when Janet takes over Ant Man, that is the kind of scene that if I was writing it, I would probably write it a different way. Because, to be honest, it takes a really, really good actor to portray a completely different character without a hint of joking in it. You'll notice that when Paul Rudd was playing Janet, there was no humor in that scene. Not one bit. It was all completely serious, and he 100% played Janet and managed to make it work. That's the kind of scene you only trust to a really, really good actor. And Paul Rudd absolutely managed to nail that one. It wasn't until after he stops being Janet that the jokes came back in. He's holding Hank's hand, and he's like, what? Why am I... What's this going on here? No, that takes talent. That takes serious talent, and that is not easy to pull off. And they managed to make that scene touching and heartwarming, even though it should have... In most other movies, it would have been childish humor, just to put that as bluntly as I can. Not necessarily a bad thing, but it would have been childish humor, right? Like, just picture that scene in an Adam Sandler movie. Just picture it. Like, he would probably have been like, oh, Hank, and just, like, dived and just tried to start making out with him, and then there had been, like, some pulling off the clothes or something, you know, something really inappropriate and weird and crude. And it would have totally destroyed the scene. Side note, I'm not a fan of Adam Sandler films, so grain of salt. But you get my point. It would have been so easy, it would have been incredibly easy to not only do that kind of crude humor, but to just slip into it unintentionally. The fact that they managed that so straight-faced is astonishing. I was just waiting for the joke to come in. I was just waiting for that. Never did it. God damn. I mentioned the bad writing aspects of the film. Anyone notice that this is one of the most artificial examples of a ticking clock ever? For those who don't know, the concept of the ticking clock in a film is we have to have such and such by such and such. It's kind of a soft enrage, in other words, where we have to do this by this time or else. And they had like 3 ticking clocks in this. They had, oh god, I can't think of Paul Rudd's character name. They had Ant Man having to be back home and having the 3-day deadline. I mean, he's 3 days from finishing this up. They had the 2 hours with the, or it was like, actually it was 48 hours originally, but you know, they had the X number of hours to find her. They had the guy and his like, I need to get this back by such and such or my people are going to come after me. I think there was like 5 total, but those are the 3 main ones. All ticking. Oh yeah, Ghost, of course. Ghost was the other ticking clock. So we have Ghost's ticking clock, the Southern guy's ticking clock, the Janet's ticking clock, and Ant-Man's ticking clock, all happening at the same time. And by the way, this is all happening right before Infinity War, so there's a clock nobody's even aware of going on. Ah! Jesus. I found myself kept thinking, there were so many times in the movie I was like, why isn't he going home yet? Like, he's done what he can. Can he go home yet? I mean, he needs to go home. This is going to sound stupid, but one of the things that made me cheer, this is not a joke, in this film, was the fact that he got off scot-free with the FBI. Because, again, in a lot of other films, that would have been the drama. Oh, no, they found me, oh. And either it would have been badly written, and they let him go just 'cause, which would be bad writing, let's be honest about it, or he would have escaped and tried to be like a vigilante, which was the angle I figured they were going with. Instead, I was like, oh, thank God, he actually did it. He actually survived. Because it pisses me off when a character is doing everything exactly as they are required to. Not necessarily right, by the way. This isn't about morality. Just what is required of them. Like 99% of the time, and then they trip at the 1%, and then they're just screwed forever. I hate it when that happens in fiction. And I was just expecting that to happen here. And then, like, there's that scene where, you know, the FBI agents come back, and his daughter's covering for him. And his daughter's covering for him, and it's like, oh God, they're going to go up there, and he's going to be the ant, and it's going to be... And then he was there. And without hesitation, that was the most tense moment of the film for me. I'm not actually kidding. I'm just sitting here like, oh God, no, please. Please, no. Oh, okay. 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 He's okay. Thank God. Speaking of which, one of the things I love about this film is they do a lot of sense-making that doesn't make sense at first. So they start off with him and his daughter. Speaking of which, his daughter was great, by the way. His daughter was absolutely amazing. It's so rare to see a good child actor like that. So yeah, Cassie, that was her. She was great. She was absolutely great. At the beginning, they have this massive thing. Like this massive cardboard tube thing. And I was watching that, sitting there thinking... Like, what was actually running through my head was something along the lines of, God, Hollywood, am I right? Like, I could never do that. I don't have the space or the time or the resources to be able to do that. And so, but of course, you could just have this massive playhouse thing in Hollywood, right? But then they explained it, because he has nothing to do. He's just sitting around at home on house arrest for years. I could just picture him painstakingly, carefully, like people bringing him the boxes and bringing him the materials he needs to slowly build this thing up to make this playhouse for his daughter. And all of a sudden, it was just like, that makes perfect sense. Oh, that's awesome. Holy crap. They actually explained that. I loved that. I really loved that. They also even do it to establish a plot point. The fact that he's on house arrest. You know, his foot going through the fence fully allows them to build up the situation. It's a nice way to weave the exposition into the events. Because it's like, you know, his ex-wife is on his side, which was kind of awesome that she's come around on that. And his ex-wife's husband, forgive me for keep saying that, but, you know, the cop was on his side, and he was cool. And I love the hugs, by the way. I didn't mention that earlier, but I love the hugs. You know, the FBI guy, who, again, was actually kind of awesome. That would be interesting, Rax. I wouldn't be opposed to that. I'll admit that. But it depends, I suppose. They did a lot of great establishment stuff. So that brings up an interesting point. One, I mentioned that there's some tick boxes. Of the various check boxes in this film, the one that pissed me off most was the drama that only showed up twice. Between Hank and Hope and Ant Man. God, I still don't know his name. What is his name? I keep wanting to say Hank. Scott. Okay, Scott is his name. I still have the IMDb up here. The drama between those two groups always kind of felt really forced and really artificial to me. Like, out of nowhere. It's even, and again, it feels like a checklist because in all the other scenes with Hank and Hope and Scott, there's some great chemistry and great dynamics, and all the actors are playing off each other brilliantly, and then just all of a sudden, drama! Just out of nowhere, right? And each time it was about something that literally was not Scott's fault. So, come on, guys. You know, that is true, Spirit of Memory. That's absolutely true. In fact, one of the things that I liked was they bothered to have the scene where Hank was talking to Miller, I want to say. You know, Morpheus. And was like, when I get Janet back, we're going to fix her. We're going to fix Ghost. I can't remember her name, but, you know, we're going to make this work. Okay? So, but right now I need you to leave the building because I'm going to shrink the building. That was a nice little inclusion there. That was a nice inclusion. I liked that because it probably should have been said earlier. By the way, a lot of this film made me laugh. A lot of it. Can anyone guess the scene that made me laugh the most? I'm just curious. Yeah, exactly, Rax. Scott is very close to the Captain America ideal, and I like that about him. He's a little more vigilante than Cap, but he's definitely got that let's do the right thing going for him. Well, the movie made me laugh tons. The Truth Serum is a very, very close second. The Truth Serum was just me experiencing pure joy. I'm not even kidding. I want to see this movie again just to see the Truth Serum scene. That was so good. I see this guy and I'm like, hey man, what's up? And he looks up and he's like, hey man, how are things? Do you know how hard it is to do what they did, by the way? To have another actor perfectly lip sync in a manner in which another actor speaks, so that when the other actor is voicing their lines, it looks completely natural. That is actually very hard to do. And they managed that with like 8 different characters as Luis was narrating. That was awesome. Anyways, no, the scene that made me laugh the most by far, we're going to go in there, we're going to find this thing, and then we're going to be, if we have to destroy them, you know, this is what's necessary. All the pain that she did. For the look, I'm sorry. That's my daughter. It's my phone. I'm sorry. Well, it doesn't matter. Even if I have to kill you. Look, could you just put FaceTime? They say it's an emergency. They say it's an emergency. Please. Okay. Hey, honey, where's my shoes? I'm not sure. Just take me as a trip through this. I can't wait to do that right now. Okay, we'll just show up later, okay? Okay, thanks. And then he apologizes. Scott's like, I'm sorry. They said it was an emergency. I thought it was an emergency. I'm sorry. That had me rolling. I mean, that was great. Hang on a second. I need to look up something here, because I need to know his friggin' name. I wanted to say it's Miller, but I might be using the wrong name. Bill. It's Bill. Sorry. It's Foster. Foster is who I'm saying of, not Miller. Sorry. So Foster, Lawrence Fishburne. And I love... there was a lot of little details, too, speaking of that scene. When Ghost... I can't remember what her name was, either. What the hell was Ghost's name? Oh, Ava. Or Ava? Ava? Ava. Who did a great job, by the way. The actress there, Hannah John Kamen, did an absolutely amazing job as Ava. Anyways, she was actually relatively nice to Scott and pleasant to him. Did you notice that? And then she was really, really mean and rude to Hank and Hope. Now, my first thought was that that was the typical Hollywood, oh, so she's crazy thing, right? But then they explained the backstory, and just like the earlier thing, it just sort of clicks and makes sense, because what's actually happening is that she really does have a legitimate grievance and hatred towards those two, and is just kind of ambivalent towards Scott. It's like, yeah, he's a guy, whatever. Also, and I didn't quite realize this until after the film came out, and I looked it up to verify it, at the end there, she went to turn herself in. Like when she was telling Bill to leave, she was going to turn herself in. Interesting little side note there. Anyways, God, Luis was so amazing. I really want to watch this film again. I'm going to buy the crap out of this film when it shows up. Yeah, and he stops her. He stops her. He's like, no, let's... God, this film is so great. God, I'm not even sure what to talk about next. The nature of how the lines connected to each other was really, really awesome. Oh, absolutely. Luis, I want a suit too. That looks good. I want that suit. Maybe if I could, like, have shrinking powers, or maybe not powers. Maybe it doesn't have to have any powers in particular. Maybe it'll just be, like, maybe it'll just look cool. Like, if it just looks cool, I just have a suit that looks cool. That'd be awesome, yeah. God damn, I love Luis in this film. You mean the mid-credits or the post-credits, Bragwin? I suppose we should just sit and really talk about the mid and post-credits scene. Let's do that. Let's pause for a second here. Let's switch playlist to the Doom playlist. So the mid and post-credit scenes were both in their own particular flavor. The post-credit scene was probably meant to be comedic. I didn't think it was. And the mid-credit scene was definitely not comedic. The whole film was basically lighthearted. Like I said, no central villain, no significant, like, doomy plot. It was very Empire Strikes Back in its own way, because it was all about the individuals, the people. There were certainly high stakes, but there were high stakes for individuals, not for, you know, if I don't do this, then all of reality will be rewritten by the Dark Elves, right? Like, there was none of that. It was all about Janet, Scott, Hope, Hank, Ava, Bill, Cassie, Louise. You get my point. It was all about the individuals. As soon as they showed that they were going to put Scott down into the quantum realm, that's when it was just like, okay, yeah, that's the end. And they're all going to die, and they're going to leave him stranded there. For those of you not aware, and this is mostly coming from the comics, the quantum realm has the ability to bypass some of physics. Now, they mention that briefly in the film. What they don't mention is that also has the ability to bypass some of time. Spoilers for Avengers 4. We have already seen set photos of them recreating the Battle of New York from Avengers 1, when they were fighting the Chitauri. We've already seen that. That's already going to be in. Now, there could be a lot of things they're doing with that. It could be a flashback. They could be showing what Captain Marvel was doing at that time. Or Scott could be going back in time. Because they've already kind of established that can happen. And yeah, as Max Time points out, time was allotted for him to get into there. And yeah, they flat out say, don't get lost in a time vortex or we can't get you out of it. That's a direct quote from the film. So this is, unfortunately, this sounds a lot like what's going to happen is they're going to actually do a time travel undo of, God damn it, of, really? What is wrong with my fan right now? Hang on. I can't snap today. The snap. They're going to do some kind of time travel undo of the snap. What is wrong with my skin today? I'm not sure what I think of that. I'm one of those people who said that I would preferred... I still can't do it. I would have preferred that they stayed dead. I've gone on record as saying that. If you're going to kill that many people, make it stick. But at the same time, I'm not really sure what's going on with what they're going to do with this. This could just be a time travel jump thing, and maybe they won't undo it. I don't know. But it's very, very clear that they want him to be time traveling. That is very well set up, and we could say that with high certainty. Yeah, go ahead, Max Time. They could also try a time travel undo and have it not work. That's true. And I'm not sure. That would be an interesting story to write now that I'm thinking about it. I can't snap right now. What the hell is wrong with me? Anyways. Oh, sorry, yeah. As Kevin Feige pointed out, we will already be seeing alternates. And we already know that they're hiring new people, probably to play several of these people in other versions. Probably future versions of these people. We'll see. We'll see. I'm really not sure what they're going with. I hope they don't pull the Type 3 time travel next time. I really do. I hate Type 3 time travel. I'm sorry. I know that's just personal preference, but I hate Type 3 time travel. Anyways. Anyways, they're ghosted away. He's stuck in the quantum realm. How long do you think he's going to be stuck down there before he realizes he's cut off? Bonus question. Do you think anyone will ever discover his van up there? Because the one and only thing I like about the post-credit scene with the ant... the ant playing on the drums, yeah, okay, whatever. But there's a small run-through, and everything's quiet. Did you notice that? Everything's really, really quiet. No birds, no cars, no noise whatsoever. Just the... of the emergency broadcast, that was actually chilling. It is basically the first time we've really seen post-snap. Everything we've seen up until now has been during snap. That was the first time we actually saw just a tiny slice of what's happened to the world after the snap. And, God, that was absolutely terrifying. And then the ant is playing on the drums. It makes me wonder, though, because someone had to hit the emergency broadcast system, right? I find myself wondering how with it the people who survived are, if that makes any sense. Because this kind of catastrophe, as I've said before, is of a scale that is difficult to comprehend, right? Like, this is so insane. Oh, by the way, it's been confirmed that animals die too. That's since been confirmed. I don't know. I found myself wondering if, like, there was a guy who saw his friend die. Like, I just picture this scene. There's a guy who watches his friend die in front of him and just hits a button. You know, hits the emergency broadcast button, because there is a switch for that in some stations. And then dies, too. Because usually the emergency broadcast is following... there's text on the bottom. Anybody who watched my Call of Duty lore run knows what I'm talking about. They actually did that in Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. Where, you know, it's... watch your corners, do not assume the streets are safe, you know, blah, blah, blah. So I like the idea that the emergency broadcast is just going with no text, because no one got around to actually putting in the emergency information there. Anyways. So, yeah, you should have seen the audience. I was joking with Third. It's like, this is what Marvel has done to us as a movie-going population. If you rewound time about 11 years... okay, the movie's over, and then people immediately get up and try to get out. Instead, not one person budged in our theater. Everyone was just sitting there watching the credits with rapt attention, waiting for the post-credit scenes to happen. It was just kind of a weird thing, as we're all just sitting there like, come on, let's go. Anyways, other aspects of the film. As I mentioned, God, this was such a well-written film. Holy crap. I like how we're still seeing the side effects of Hydra. I mean that seriously. It's a nice bit of continuity. The fact that Hydra has had... no, MCU spoilers are allowed, Venters. The fact that Hydra is still... like, the crap they did is still having an impact is something I appreciate with regards to Ava specifically. That's hilarious, Rex. What are you doing? No, Krensler, I do not. Because I don't think death exists in the MCU. I'm serious. There's nothing to indicate death exists except for one sideline, which was tossed way back in Avengers 1 before they designed Thanos as a character. Oh, wow, I literally just talked about that, Venters. Did you just show up? It was literally the last thing I talked about as we were talking about the post-credits thing. I think that he's going back in time. I think they're going to try to undo this time-wise. There's the summary. What do you mean, max time? What do you mean? Explain yourself. God, I'm running through the film in my head now. What have you not seen Infinity War, Krensler? I'm going to assume you haven't, for the mere fact that you're asking that question. Thanos is a fully fleshed out, awesome villain in Infinity War in the MCU. I recommend you see the film, because anything I say will be a summary. He is the mad titan who watched his people die through infight, what is implied to be infighting, conflict, lack of resources, etc. And in watching his civilization crumble and self-destruct, he now believes the only way to properly salvage the rest of society is to go around, reduce the population of those planets so that there is less competition for resources. Basically do a sort of a culling in order to try and deal with entropy as a concept, as well as dealing with, you know, overpopulation and limited resources. Oh, gotcha, Max Time. I liked that. I liked that a lot. I very much liked the fact that they showed each of the families being brought together. It ended the film on a very high note, which is funny considering the mid-credit scene. Yeah, I can do it. There we go. Yeah, Infinity War is a very good film. Infinity War is also in the running for my favorite MCU, by the way. Do I think Thanos snapped cultures he already culled? Yes, I do. Because what I think is that Thanos basically did a very, very high-tier version of rules magic, which I've talked about several times on the show. In other words, rather than Thanos reaching out and killing half the planet and picking and choosing, I think he set up a rule, and the rule propagated throughout the universe. Like, you know, rules magic. I think he basically said, half of life, gone. And the only thing that's up to question is what decides half. But given that Thanos himself was very big on being impartial, and on, you know, he says this multiple times, it'll be impartial regardless of race, regardless of resources, regardless of standing, regardless of power, regardless of money, the rich and the poor, doesn't matter. Half, gone. So, look, Buckfell, I'm just saying, there we go. It's okay, I'm snapping with my right hand. I agree, Max Time. Like I said, I think he established a rule, and the rule did it. And yes, the Asgardians are very likely to be an endangered people right now. No, seriously. Although we have had it confirmed that Valkyrie survived. That is something that's been confirmed. So, woo. What do you mean, Savicom? I don't understand your question. Like, you say he says it doesn't work. Oh, yeah, Korg survived, too. You say he says it doesn't work, but Thanos himself gives the argument to Gamora in Infinity War that it does work. That the planet that she's from is doing a lot better than it was. That she comes from a planet that when she was born, she grew up starving. But now everyone there has full bellies, I believe, is the way he phrases it. So, in Thanos' eyes, he has demonstrable proof that it works. I'm not saying it necessarily is the right decision. But, yeah. Back to Ant Man for a second. Yeah, the amount of death is literally unfathomable by the human mind. It's actually impossible for a human mind to comprehend the death of quadrillions. That's not a thing. Like, picture the galaxy really quick. All right, whatever you're picturing is not the galaxy, because you have a human mind and you can't. That's my point. Anyways, I think that was probably just them planning for stuff they weren't sure about yet, Ventures, which is also true with the Gamora thing, consequently. My opinion. So, help me out, guys, because I haven't been following the TV shows that well. I don't think we've really seen time travel in the MCU yet. Can anyone confirm or deny that? No, I agree, Black Vial. Although, it probably wouldn't have to be repeated for a long time, so he's got a long break before he has to snap again. Oh, this is an appropriate song for this topic. The World of Ruin. Yeah, Flash is DC. Oh yeah, someone asked a DC question. Sorry, where was that? I processed it, but I didn't answer it. Where was that? Who was asking about DC? Help me out. Whoever was asking about DC, just repeat your question, whoever it was. Ginger, okay, what was your question? Sorry, because I can't seem to find it in the chat here. Oh, there it is, there it is. What do I think the DCU would have to fix? Wait, hang on. What do I think the DCU would have to do to fix its movies beside the script? In my honest opinion, I think they should stop trying to ape the MCU. Do their own thing. Now, actually, I'm going to take that back. Rewind. I undo that. Hang on. That statement is now half gone. I think they need a mainliner. That's what I think. For those of you not aware of what I mean, a mainliner is the creative lead of a project. You know, Tetsuya Nomura for Kingdom Hearts, JMS for Babylon 5, multiple people for Star Trek over the years, right? Like, the mainliner is the go-to central dictator when it comes to a creative work. They need a Kevin Feige. That's exactly right. Kevin Feige is the mainliner for the MCU. And having that one central point, which is helping to keep everything coordinated, is, in my opinion, one of the reasons the MCU has worked so well. They don't have a mainliner for the DCU. They haven't had a mainliner for the DCU. And good God, has it shown. Even, I actually like several of the DC films. And I know that puts me in an outlier. I've actually been called really nasty stuff for speaking positively about DC films. But even the films that I like are clearly being made by different people with different ideas and different visions. And they're clashing with themselves. Like, individual films are self-clashing because their own creative staff can't get on one particular board, right? They can't decide this is what we want to do. They need a mainliner, and they don't have one. So, there you go. That being stated, I do think that Wonder Woman was a great film, and I do think that there are good elements to other DCU films. We'll see where they go in the future. Yes, I do, Little Billy. But then again, I loved the Justice Lord story arc, so make of that what you will. Was there something else I wanted to talk about in Ant Man? I swear there was. Hang on a second here. Give me a moment. I recommend watching Wonder Woman Rax. It is a legitimately great film. The other films have good elements and flawed elements. Call me a weirdo. One of my favorite elements about Batman vs. Superman was Lex Luthor. Seriously. No trolling, no, trying to stir up stuff. I legitimately felt like that Lex was a very well done and interesting character. Now, he was not Lex Luthor. I do have to add that proviso. But he was an interesting character in his own right. Probably my favorite scene for him, well, since Rax hasn't seen it, I'm not going to spoil it, but basically, the scene where he's talking to Soups on the roof, that was an awesome scene. Horrifically chilling. Absolutely terrifying. The very fact that Lex was able to basically hold Superman at bay in that scene is all I need to say about it, Good Lord. That was messed up. I also loved his speech. I learned at a young age that God can either be not all good or not all powerful. That speech was awesome. Anyways, so I'm looking at... Sorry, we were supposed to be talking about Ant Man. Let me see if there's anything else I wanted to talk about Ant Man here. So there's Sonny. That was his name, Sonny Birch. Okay, does anybody else wish that Sonny Birch had been Hammer? I'm honestly curious if anybody else had the same desire out of him and his character. Like a mostly comedic, not really villain, right? Who's obviously down in his luck. He's obviously low tier. And of course, I mean, I have to admit, I'm hugely biased because Sam Rockwell is amazing. He's one of my favorite actors in general. But, yeah, Sam Rockwell, Justin Hammer from Iron Man 2. The idea of Justin Hammer being there instead of Sonny Birch, that would have been awesome. I'd have been like, oh, dude, yes. That would have just sold. I mean, it's not like the guy who played Sonny, Walton Goggins, did a bad job of it. But, oh, that would have been amazing to have Hammer there as just the down on his luck, low-tier criminal type who can get a hold of somebody who thinks he's a lot bigger of a deal than he is, right? I mean, it just fits almost one-to-one. I can even see Hammer in, like, the scene. No, this is what I want, is I want to know where Scott is physically. Like, can't you just picture Hammer saying that scene in that way? Oh, that would have been awesome. What else we got here? I'm looking at my notes here, such as it is. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, yeah, did you notice that Elias was basically not a character? For those of you not aware, Elias, also known as Egghead, was a pretty horrible villain over in the comics. In here, we don't know. We have no idea who or what he was. We just know that he was locked out of his research by Hank because Hank was not a good person. I find myself wondering, because we know with total certainty that Hydra had their fingers in a lot of pots. And I like the idea that Hydra continued to fund him, but that he wasn't evil, so to speak, right? Like, he just really wanted to continue his research. And these Hydra guys, who we probably didn't even know were Hydra, were willing to fund him. In fact, if anything, it was probably S.H.I.E.L.D. who was funding his research. That's just the impression I got. They don't actually explain that. I thought that was interesting, though, that they leave that to our, us to make it up. Because we get an extremely biased account of events from Ava and from Bill's perspective, Foster's perspective. Hail Hydra. You know, it would be so easy to oust a Hydra agent. All you have to do is walk up to someone and say, "Hey, Hail Hydra." And if they respond, then you stab them. Yeah, me too, Krenzler. Me too. Well, then I will get stabbed. Exactly, Venters. Are you a demon? You have found me out. Did they actually do that, Sage Fox? That is hysterical. I stopped watching S.H.I.E.L.D., and I don't want to complain about it right now, but let's just say that S.H.I.E.L.D. really lost me when it decided to stop acknowledging canon. Spoilers for S.H.I.E.L.D. in 3, 2, 1. They don't even have the snap in S.H.I.E.L.D. They actively ignored the snap in the final episode. I'm actually in shock that one of the most impacting, severe things to ever happen in fiction ever was ignored deliberately. And we know it was deliberate because I've seen the interviews. I've actually seen the where they talked about them, where they talked about why they did that, because apparently what they're doing is S.H.I.E.L.D. Yeah, they even referenced the movie. They referenced the invasion, the Thanos' invasion, and one of the whole reasons the Confederation or whatever was trying to get them on board was like, hey, you know, Thanos is coming and this is a problem, and then they just what? But yeah, basically they have flat out stated that they're just kind of ignoring the movies from going forward, and it's just weird and stupid. You know, it's not something I'm in favor of, to be as blunt about that as I possibly can. Maybe it'll make sense down the line, I don't know, but as is, I just don't care. If you're not going to acknowledge the continuity of the setting you're in, then I don't care about you. I put up enough of that with Star Trek. At least Star Trek tried, right? I mean, God's sakes. Tried. Sorry, I should use past tense on that one. How do you defeat someone with unlimited power? Well, you get another Q. Or you talk them to death. One of the two. Yeah, apparently you just ignore it. It's okay, there's no Thanos. Guys, what we need to do, we need to walk up to Thanos and be, Thanos, buddy. And Thanos is like, yeah, okay. Sorry. It'll be cool. We'll be cool from now on. Anyways. I'm sorry, if I could just say one more thing. It aggravates me because a television show can do so many types of storytelling that a movie can't, by the very nature of its format. There's so much world building and filling the holes and character stuff you could do from a television perspective to help flesh out the MCU. Detaching it from the MCU makes it easier to do, I'll admit that, but worse, in my opinion. It's basically, S.H.I.E.L.D. is practically an AU at this point. Anyway. anyways. How's it going? Spoilers. I think we're kind of done. Ant Man 2 was really, 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 really good. It is so good, I want to see it again. In the theaters. I won't. I don't have time and I have no one to go with. But I want that film in my life. It was a really good film and I want to rewatch it. And that says something. So, make of that what you will. So Perlmutter has been an asshole since the 90s, Max Time. So, which specific thing are you referring to? Like, Perlmutter has been such a problem for so long at this point in time. God damn. I'm not joking, by the way. It was a mess, let's just put it that way. It was a mess. The ArenaNet debacle? You mean the thing that I'm never talking about ever, ever, ever? No, I have not talked about it. The ArenaNet debacle is one of those things where if I even talk about it, if I even bring it up, I am inviting problems. If I give my opinion on it, I am painting a giant target on my face. No, I am not talking about it. Absolutely not. The environment we exist in right now makes that utterly unsafe territory. I'm serious. I could make a topic about that. I thought about that. There's so many things. Obviously, I have my no controversial topic thing, which is a real-life rule in addition to a show rule. I don't talk about controversial stuff with people in person. I haven't since I was 13. It's about when I started that rule. But it's... As someone who has a show where I talk about things on the internet, I have to crank that up to 11. I have to crank that filter up to 11. I can't even joke about something. I can't even bring up certain topics. Because simply by bringing them up, I give the passive implied consent to discuss it in chat or in comments. And then people will, and then it will get out of control because it's the internet. So, nope. Not touching it. You notice I still haven't referenced what it is. I haven't even brought up the topic. I'm just referring to one specific thing, which is only one of many things that have happened this year. Anyways. I guess that's actually all I've got about Ant Man. It was a really, really, really good film. I want to watch it again. I am curious if it or any other MCU films are going to be requested in the future for future Ruminations. I don't know. I'm not even sure why future Ruminations is going to happen. When should controversial things be discussed? That is a good question. Halloween is a good answer. I like that. There's a reason I have that Halloween rule. Here, let's go ahead and chop off the recording. So, chop off the recording. Let's just chop this off.